Chapter 1658. Yun Jian's words rang out abruptly and reached the ears of every student in the class, stirring up a storm. After all, representing Z country to further their studies in a hunting school was something that every student present could only imagine. At least for now, it was something that was out of their reach. But what about Yun Jian? Did Yun Jian really get a place in such an unattainable thing? Of course, that was not the main point. The main point was that Yun Jian actually got first place. What kind of place was the selection arena? The people who went were the most famous special forces soldiers in the country. Yun Jian was still inexperienced. She was just a student from Min City's military school. Like everyone else, she was just an ordinary student. But she got first place in the selection arena? If Yun Jian barely made it into the top 20, the crowd would not be as shocked as they were now. However, the scary thing was that Yun Jian actually got first place in the selection arena? That was a lie, right? Yun Jian, don't try to lie to us. It hasn't even been a month since you went to the selection arena. You got first place? Who would believe that? It hasn't even been a month and only those who are eliminated will be sent back. The way I see it, it's obvious that you were eliminated and sent back. You're still pretending that you got first place. Who would believe you? Lin Xia was no fool. She could tell that Yun Jian's retort just now was an overt and covert retaliation. Moreover, it had not even been a month since Yun Jian went to the selection arena. She was sent back in less than a month. If that was not elimination, what was it? We believe in Yun Jian. She's never bothered to lie. Chu Ning stood up and patted her chest as she spoke in a reassuring tone. She won't lie. I guarantee it with my integrity. Just as Chu Ning's voice fell, Jiang Weiwei spoke up as well. Jiang Weiwei still remembered that in the beginning she was also one of the members who went against Yun Jian. Today she was completely convinced by Yun Jian. We Team Monarch never lie, Captain Lu Shiyun said solemnly. In their hearts, Yun Jian was no different from a god. It was because of Yun Jian that Team Monarch was where they were today. When Lu Shiyun started, all 6 members of Team Monarch were fighting to pat their chests and swear that Yun Jian was telling the truth. You're just siding with your teammates. Whether or not I've been chosen, we'll know when the results are announced. Lin Xia seemed to be angry. She gritted her teeth fiercely. Just as she finished speaking, the homeroom teacher, Teacher Chu, walked into the classroom from outside the door. The students were still in shock. It was the end of class now. Why would the class teacher come to the classroom? However, Mr. Chu looked around and set his eyes on Yun Jian. He then walked over quickly. Yun Jian, you've won first place in this selection. Our Min City Military Academy is basking in your glory. The higher-ups are praising our Min City Military Academy for producing such a talent. Principal Ma is over the moon. He's asking you to go to his office for tea. Teacher Chu spoke to Yun Jian as he walked. Principal Ma was the principal of Min City Military Academy. Yun Jian's participation in the selection was due to Principal Ma's recommendation. Teacher Chu's words were like a heavy invisible slap on Lin Xia's face. Lin Xia's face was as dark as steel from the heavy blow. Even when Yun Jian walked out of the classroom, Lin Xia's face was still as dark as if she had been constipated for 365 days. The students in the class were dumbfounded. She actually made it to the preliminaries? Chapter 1659. The students in the classroom were still in shock, but Yun Jian had already gone to Principal Ma's office. After receiving Principal Ma's hospitality in his office, they could already go to the cafeteria for lunch when they came out. Yun Jian, you don't know how Lin Xia looked like she ate shit when she heard Teacher Chu say that you got first place, ha ha ha. After you left, Lin Xia's face was still dark, and she still hadn't recovered from the shock for a long time. Lin Wan was still talking about how Lin Xia saw that Yun Jian really got first place, and then Yun Jian was invited to the principal's office for tea by the homeroom teacher, Teacher Chu. Lin Xia was so shocked that her mouth was wide open, and she couldn't even make a sound, as if she had been constipated for hundreds of days. As she spoke, Lin Wan was still laughing.
Lin Wan
as
shook
if
her
she
head
was the one who was
immediately after
venting
hearing
her
that.
anger. No, Yun Jian only pursed her red
I'm not
lips
going
after
either,
hearing
you have
that.
fun.
This kind of
and
small
said to Yun
matter is
Jian.
not worth mentioning.
But Yun Jian, is it
Mooing
really
said
okay
with a
for you
smile,
to skip
showing
school
her
like
big
this?
white teeth. You were just
Halfway
praised
through
today
the
if you
meal,
get
Chu
caught.
Ning
and the others
Lin
brought
Wan
their
was
lunch
still
boxes
worried.
to the table
However,
next to Yun
before
Jian.
Lin Wan could finish
Yun
her
Jian,
sentence,
we're going out
Yun
for a walk
Jian's red
tonight.
lips
Do you want to
curled
come
up.
along? She
Chu
pursed her
Ning
lips
looked
at
at
Yun
Yun
Jian
for
and
2
asked Yun
seconds and
Jian,
said,
"Aren't we staying in school
After
tonight?"
that, Yun Jian
How are
took
you
the
going to
lunch
get
box
out?
with one hand
Lin
and
Wan
poured the
blinked
rest of the
innocently
food.
and asked.
Lin Wan was left
Shusho.
behind,
Don't
and
be
she
so
was
loud,
slightly
we're in
stunned,
school, but we can
she shook
climb
her
over
head
the
in the
wall
end,
and get out.
indicating that she
We'll
did
come
not
back when
understand.
we're done playing. It's youth.
The
We
agreed
have to
time
have
was
some
10
fun.
o'clock,
And
and
after the
Chu
dormitory
Ning
check,
dissed Lin
they
Wan
would gather
and
at
winked
the
at
wall
Yun
of the
Jian
south
again.
gate of the school.
I promised to treat
Min
you
City
guys to a
Military
meal last
Academy
time
went to
tonight.
bed early.
Yun
And the
Jian held a
dormitory
bowl
check
of
was
seaweed
early as
soup,
well.
and she promised
At around
Chu
10
Ning and the
o'clock,
others
the
indirectly.
dormitory auntie
As
and
soon as
uncle
she
were
finished
already
speaking,
asleep.
she put the bowl
Even
of
the girls
seaweed
in
soup
Yun
into her
Jian's
mouth.
dormitory were half asleep.
Delicious. Okay.
Chapter
Then Yun Jian will
1660.
call a few buddies we
The
just
aunties
met,
in the
that's
female
okay,
dormitory
right?
and the
I think we'll
uncles
call
in
a
the
few
male
more
dormitory
people,
had
and
the
if we get
same
caught,
problem.
we'll all be
They
punished
slept
together,
very
hee hee.
deeply. Because of
Chu
this,
Xiangnan scratched
many
his
students
head
from Min
and
City
asked Yun
Military
Jian in a
Academy would
negotiating
escape
tone.
in the middle of the
It
night
just
to
so
play
happens
and
that
have
you've
supper.
won first place.
Moreover, they'd
Most
love
of
to
the
meet
students
you.
in Min City
Chu
Military
Xiangnan did
Academy
not
were
stop
martial
talking.
artists.
Anything
Other
is
than a
fine.
few girls who
Yun Jian
studied
said these
military
two
medicine
words,
and
the rest
continued
of
to
the
take a
boys
sip
were
of
all
the seaweed
military
soup.
academy students.
Okay.
Naturally,
Their
their strength
Xiangnan
was
was
not
not
to
to
be
be
underestimated.
underestimated.
That.
After
He
all,
nodded
they were
and
trained
began
to
to
finish
finish the
their
food
food
in his
academy.
lunchbox at
Naturally,
lightning
they wouldn't be
speed.
too bad.
After Chu Ning
Those
and
who
her
played
friends
truant
left,
would hide a
Lin
little,
Wan stared at
afraid
Yun
that
Jian
the aunties
blankly.
in charge of the
She lowered
dormitory
her
would
voice
still
and
be
asked
awake
Yun
and
Jian
would
in
be
her softest
soft-trolling.
voice.
But what
Jian,
about
are
Yun
you
Jian?
guys really going to
She
skip
walked
school and go
openly
out
to
to
the
play?
female dormitory's
This isn't
entrance.
good, is it?
But the strange
Yun
thing was
Jian
that
did not
Yun
answer
Jian's
Lin Wan's
footsteps were
directly,
light,
and
it was
instead
like a
asked
female
Lin Wan
ghost
in
floating
return,
on the ground
want to go
without making
together?
any sound.
Yun Jian walked without making any sound, just like a female ghost. If someone saw this scene, it would be strange if they weren't scared to death. Yun Jian's dormitory building was quite high. When Yun Jian reached the second floor, just as she turned the corner on the second floor, a girl secretly ran over from the other side. Because Yun Jian's footsteps were light, it was as if there was no sound at all, so the girl didn't notice that someone was coming down the stairs on the third floor. When Yun Jian stepped on the stairs on the second floor, the girl happened to rush over from the corner. The moment she saw Yun Jian, the girl nearly shrieked when she saw her due to the darkness and the fact that she did not make any noise when she walked. In the end, she clamped her hand over her mouth to stop herself from shrieking. Yun Jian immediately dodged to the side when the girl rushed over and avoided the girl's collision. But the girl was pitiful. She was so scared that her forehead hit the wall hard. She forced herself not to make a sound. It wasn't until she saw that Yun Jian was a human who had played truant like her that the girl lowered her voice and shouted at Yun Jian. "What are you doing? Don't you see if there's anyone here?" The girl shouted at Yun Jian in a muffled voice. Yun Jian blinked but didn't pay much attention to him. Tonight's moon was especially round. The round moon shone on the earth. Over at the dormitory building, the girls could see Yun Jian's face clearly. Yun Jian's night vision was very good. Naturally, she could see the girl's face clearly. Just now it was the girl who rushed over. She was not wrong, so Yun Jian ignored the girl and went straight downstairs. "You." The girl didn't dare to yell loudly, so after a muffled sigh, she also sneaked downstairs. The door to the female dormitory was locked, so the dormitory manager was snoring. The girls' dormitory was surrounded by fences and the door was locked. There was no way to get out. There were already 4 or 5 girls standing there. It could be seen that there were many people who sneaked out of the school to play in the middle of the night. "Are you here yet? Are they here yet? Did senior sister bring the key?" These girls bent over and snuck out in the middle of the night. They didn't even have the courage to stand up straight. "Not yet. I wonder what senior sister is doing. I feel that if this goes on, we'll be discovered by the dormitory manager." These girls stood at the door anxiously. Their voices were as soft as the buzzing of insects. Just as the girls said this, they saw a figure looming at the stairs. "She's here?" Senior sister is here? One of the girls said happily. However, before the girls could rejoice, they saw a person with a high ponytail walking over with a straight back. She didn't look like a truant at all. The girls were so disappointed that they were discouraged. Why isn't senior sister here yet? One of the girls complained softly. Just as she finished speaking, she saw Yunjian walk straight to the door. She reached out to touch the door lock. Hey, what are you doing? Can you open the door without the key? If you open the door without the key, not only will you shake the door lock and alert the dormitory manager, you won't be able to open the door. Which class are you from? Are you stupid? Before Yunjian could reach out to touch the door lock, a girl immediately stood up to stop her. However, before the girl could reach out to stop Yunjian inserted the thin iron wire in her hand into the door lock. She shook the door lock slightly twice. Then Yunjian opened the door under the girl's gazes. She didn't look like a truant student at all. She straightened her back and walked out as if nothing had happened. Seeing Yunjian open the door so easily, the girls were completely dumbfounded. Chapter 1661. Who was she? How could she open the door just by fiddling with the lock without using a key? Why would she need a key if the lock was there? The girls who were standing at the same spot gaped in shock as they watched Yunjian walk away. It was only when the girl who almost bumped into Yunjian sneaked down the stairs that they realized what had happened. The girl who almost bumped into Yunjian was stunned when she saw the door open. Then she asked softly, "How did this door open?" The girl who just walked out opened it. She just fiddled with the door and it opened. One of the girls replied in a daze. At this moment, Yunjian had already arrived at the wall surrounding the south gate of the school where they had agreed to meet. There were quite a few people standing there. Apart from Chu Ning's group of 6, there were also a few boys and a few girls. It was not hard to tell that a few of the boys were Chu Xiangnan's buddies. As for the girls, they were probably the girlfriends of Chu Xiangnan's buddies. Of course, one or two of the girls had tagged along to hang out. Min City Military Academy was huge and there were many girls studying military medicine. Therefore, there were 3 female dormitories while there were more than 10 male dormitories. Chu Ning, Jiang Weiwei, and these girls were definitely not in the same dormitory as Yunjian. There were lights near the south wall, so Yunjian could see the faces of the people in front of her clearly when she arrived. There's a beauty here. When Yunjian appeared, one of the boys whistled and looked at Yunjian with a slightly teasing tone. When young boys and girls stood together, the boys would always have a sense of vanity. They would want to show off their most handsome or knowledgeable side in front of everyone. On the other hand, girls loved to show off how they were different from other girls in front of the boys. To put it bluntly, it was to show off their charm. Xiangnan,
Isn't it
you're
a little
amazing.
scary to climb
How do you
over
know
the
such
wall?
a beautiful woman?
As soon as Wu Yaotian
The guy
said
who had
that,
teased Yunjian
turned
earlier
her body
even
away.
snapped his fingers at
Aha,
Chu
the beauty
Xiangnan.
is ignoring you.
Chu Xiangnan
The other
smiled
boys jeered
awkwardly,
again.
but in
Wu
his
Yaotian
heart he
licked
was
his
thinking,
lips.
didn't you
He
guys
turned
ask
and
to
grabbed
see
another
Yunjian?
girl.
After
Xiangnan,
getting the other girl's
is your team
permission,
monarch's
he
Grim
carried
Reaper
the girl
coming or
and jumped
not?
over the wall. However, she
Then
saw
he
the
jumped
boy
back over the
poking his
wall.
head towards the
How is
dormitory
it?
building.
Am I good at
When he
climbing
saw
over
that it
the
was
wall?
pitch black,
It only
he
took
turned
me a
his
minute
head
to
and
bring you
complained
out.
impatiently.
What do you think,
The
beauty?
boy's name was
Do you
Wu
want me to
Yaotian,
carry you out?
and he was a senior in the
Yaotian
3rd year of
reached
high
out to
school.
Yunjian again.
He usually took
Brother
care of Chu
Yaotian, why are you
Xiangnan,
carrying
but he
her?
was extremely
Look, she's
prideful and
ignoring
liked
you.
to act cool
Just
in
let
front
her
of
stay in
girls,
school
especially
alone.
beauties. We'll go out and
Isn't
have
this
fun.
already?
She can't go
It's
out
already
on her
in
own.
front of you.
Don't bother
Chu
about her.
Xiangnan didn't have
A
time
girl
to
who
say
was standing
anything.
at the side
Wu
pouted and
Yaotian
whined
had
to Wu
already reached
Yaotian
out
when
his
she
hand
saw
towards
that.
Yunjian.
This girl's name was
She
Ji
looked
Mei.
at Yunjian with
She
what
was
he
Wu
thought was a
Yaotian's seductive
admirer.
gaze and said, "Beauty, if you
Beauty,
don't come
let
over,
me carry
I'll
you
carry
over the
another
wall.
girl.
Look
This
at your
wall
precious
is 2
body.
meters high. You won't be able to get out." Wu Yaotian threatened Yunjian. As he spoke, he waved his hand again. As soon as Wu Yaotian finished speaking, he saw Yunjian take 2 steps towards him. Wu Yaotian's eyes lit up. Just as the surrounding boys were jeering and thinking that Yunjian was going to throw herself into Wu Yaotian's arms and beg to be carried over the wall. However, they saw Yunjian run forward. Then she jumped up and grabbed the top of the 2-meter-high wall with both hands. With a 360 degrees flip, she spun and jumped over the wall. Her movements were clean and neat as if she had done this hundreds of times. This process didn't take more than 3 seconds. Chapter 1662. If Yunjian was not a martial artist, it was impossible for her to be so nimble with her movements just now. When students from regular schools played truant, even boys would look pathetic when they were climbing over walls. However, if there were girls climbing over walls, the boys would have to look dashing when they did it. They were all students from the military school. Other than Yunjian, the rest were seniors from the 2nd and 3rd years of high school. They had been training in the military school for 2 to 3 years, so their skills were naturally different from regular people. For Year 3 seniors like Wu Yaotian, climbing over walls was a walk in the park. He was confident that he could do it even if he had to carry a girl over the wall. However, Wu Yaotian and the rest did not expect Yun Jian to be able to climb over the 2-meter-high wall in just 3 seconds. Even the male students who were from the military class of the 3rd year of high school couldn't do such a thing. Xiangnan, how was she so good? Wu Yaotian was dumbfounded. He looked at Chu Xiangnan and was interrupted by Chu Xiangnan. You can't afford to offend her. Chu Xiangnan looked at Wu Yaotian meaningfully but did not reveal Yun Jian's identity. He patted Wu Yaotian's shoulder and walked to the wall with a smile before climbing over it. Chu Xiangnan befriended Wu Yaotian and the rest because they treated him well. However, that did not rule out the fact that Wu Yaotian and the rest liked to show off in front of girls. It was true that most boys liked to show off their abilities in front of girls. After Chu Xiangnan climbed over the wall, the other 5 members of Team Monarch did the same. The other 5 members of Team Monarch ignored Wu Yaotian and the rest. It was obvious that Wu Yaotian and the rest were in cahoots. Fiske, what's there to be proud of? So what if she climbed over the wall? I can do it too. Chi Mei was indignant that Yun Jian had everyone's attention. Recalling how Yun Jian had flipped over the wall just now, she went over to do the same. Chi Mei, you have to be careful. Outside the wall, Yun Jian had been waiting for quite some time. Chu Ning, Chu Xiangnan, Jiang Weiwei, Lu Shiyun, Fang Xiaoran and Hong Fan had been working hard in the military school and their skills had improved tremendously. Yun Jian had taken 3 seconds to climb over the wall while the 6 of them had taken a longer time. However, Yun Jian could sense that they had improved as compared to the past. You've improved, Yun Jian commented with a press of her lips after Chu Ning and the others climbed out of the wall. Haha, of course. Otherwise, you wouldn't have said that we're as dark as charcoal when you saw us last time. Chu Ning went over to put her hands on Yun Jian's shoulders and told Yun Jian with a grin. After that, Chu Ning tilted her head and smiled at Yun Jian. Speaking of which, Yun Jian, this is our first time skipping school to have supper together, isn't it? I can bring you out every day if you want. Chu Xiangnan quickly whispered into Chu Ning's ear when he heard Chu Ning talking to Yun Jian with a smile. Shut up. I'm talking to Yun Jian. Chu Ning sprung up to knock Chu Xiangnan's head and rolled her eyes at Chu Xiangnan with a grin before talking to Yun Jian enthusiastically. It was 5 minutes later when Wu Yaotian and the others climbed over the wall. When everyone was out, Wu Yaotian asked Chu Xiangnan casually just so he could take a few more glances at Yun Jian who was standing beside Chu Xiangnan. Xiangnan, is Slashing God from Team Monarch coming or not? Is she going to stand you up? As he asked, Wu Yaotian took a few more glances at Yun Jian. Isn't she already here? Chu Xiangnan was surprised before he replied. Wu Yaotian and the others were stunned by Chu Xiangnan's words. Wu Yaotian snapped out of it and asked in disbelief, where is she? Why don't I see her? She's Slashing God from Team Monarch. The Slashing God who won first place in this selection, our school's legend. Chu Xiangnan pointed at Yun Jian and told the incredulous Wu Yaotian. Initially, Chi Mei was still unconvinced by Yun Jian while Wu Yaotian and the others only treated Yun Jian as an ordinary girl. Wu Yaotian and the others even thought that she was a student from a military medical course. Now that they heard Chu Xiangnan's words, however, they were completely dumbfounded. Chapter 1663. Aya, what's with that expression? Yun Jian has always been our Team Monarch's killing god. Chu Xiangnan saw Wu Yaotian and the rest's deflated expressions and added a few words to help Yun Jian gloat. Other things aside, as a member of Team Monarch, Chu Xiangnan's favorite thing to do the most was to step in when others looked down on Yun Jian. It was a great feeling. Wu Yaotian and the rest were already stunned, but after hearing what Chu Xiangnan said, they were even more shocked. However, that was not enough as Chu Xiangnan continued to brag about Yun Jian's abilities. Don't judge Yun Jian by her skinny frame. Just look at her skinny arms and legs and you'll see that she has no ability at all. Actually, the reason why Team Monarch is able to achieve what we have today is all because of Yun Jian. You guys don't know this, but the first time we carried out a mission it was very difficult. That mission required us to. Chu Xiangnan stood by the wall and bragged to Wu Yaotian and the rest while pointing at Yun Jian. Wu Yaotian and the rest were stunned by what he said. At the end, Chu Xiangnan started to exaggerate. He pointed at Yun Jian and used exaggerated words to brag about Yun Jian's abilities to Wu Yaotian and the rest. You don't know this, but our mission was to steal an underground gang's secrets. Guess what happened in the end? By the time we got the news, Yun Jian had already killed her way into the gang alone and annihilated the entire gang. She was alone. She had single-handedly annihilated the entire gang. Back then the higher-ups were so shocked. Ah, that expression was so wonderful. Chu Xiangnan's words became more and more exaggerated. In the end, Wu Yaotian and the others were so shocked by Chu Xiangnan's words that their jaws dropped and formed an O shape. Especially Wu Yaotian. Just now, Wu Yaotian wanted to use the excuse of carrying Yun Jian over the wall to flirt with Yun Jian. Originally, Wu Yaotian wanted to show off the skills he had learned in the military academy in front of everyone other than to flirt with Yun Jian. He felt that as a student of the Min City Military Academy, his strength was already very impressive. However, after hearing Chu Xiangnan's words, Wu Yaotian felt that it was a joke that he wanted to show off in front of Yun Jian. She was the god of slaughter. It was the killing god who had won first place in the qualifiers not long ago. Those who participated in the selection were the best special forces soldiers in the country. Yun Jian would be facing the best special forces soldiers in the country. Those people were mythical existences. What about Yun Jian? She won first place. Not to mention Yun Jian's battle record of annihilating an entire gang alone. No matter which one it was, in front of Wu Yaotian and the others, they were all out of reach. One could imagine how ugly Wu Yaotian's expression was at that moment. As for Qi Mei, who had said a few bad things about Yun Jian, her expression wasn't any better. Ah, so she's the killing god, the legendary killing god. When Wu Yaotian and the others' expressions darkened, one of the guys in their group stood up and said straightforwardly. This guy had a candid personality and his words were forceful and forceful. Soon the atmosphere at the scene was heated up again. It's not early anymore. Let's go eat supper and hurry back to school. At this moment, Lu Shiyun, who had been silent all this while, spoke up. As soon as Lu Shiyun finished speaking, everyone agreed, and the group quickly walked to the supper stall. Wu Yaotian and Qi Mei were the only ones who still remembered the unhappiness from before. Qi Mei, in particular, felt an inexplicable rage burning in her eyes as she watched Yun Jian move forward. Chapter 1664. There was a food street near the military academy. The food street here was very lively. The people here had a rich nightlife, so there were many people who came to the food street for supper at night. The food street here was filled with food stalls. If one wanted to walk from the beginning to the end, it would take more than 10 minutes. Usually, the students who played truant from the military academy would come to this food street for supper. Yun Jian and the others came here as well. What supper do you all want to eat? The boy who stood up to deal with the awkward atmosphere was called Duan Mu. Like his name, Duan Mu was a very modest and elegant boy. As soon as everyone arrived, Duan Mu swept his gaze over everyone and asked, "Let's go eat barbecue skewers," Chuning suddenly suggested. The entire street was filled with all kinds of snacks. There were all kinds of snacks and everything one could think of. For example, noodles, rice noodles, and of course barbecue. Chuning's suggestion immediately received the silent approval of everyone present. Even Qi Mei, who had a problem with Yun Jian, did not say anything. Barbecue was the favorite of young people. Most young people did not know that barbecue could not be eaten too much, or that barbecue was unhealthy. Especially in this era, health awareness was not so strong. Therefore, many young people would go eat barbecue whenever they had the chance. Haha, come, I'll lead the way. I know a barbecue place that's especially good. It's the most popular shop here. Duan Mu quickly recommended himself. As they spoke, the group walked towards the shop recommended by Duan Mu. The military academy was silent at this moment, especially the dormitory building. It was so quiet that only the breathing of the students could be heard. However, this food street was completely different from the military academy. The food street was filled with neon lights. There was a large and bright light bulb hanging above every shop. There were tables and chairs for hawkers scattered in front of the shop. Although the tables and chairs were old and the food street did not look clean, there was a unique flavor to it. There were many tables and chairs in front of the barbecue shop recommended by Duan Mu. As soon as they walked in, Duan Mu waved at the shop owner and said, "Brother Dong, give us 50 mutton skewers, 30 skewers of roasted gluten, and 10 skewers of roasted leeks. Give us more as you see fit." Obviously, it was not Duan Mu's first time here. The owner of this shop was quite young. Judging from his figure, he was about 28 or 29 years old. Hearing Duan Mu's words, the boss, who was called Brother Dong, replied, "Okay. I'll roast it for you first. It'll be ready soon." "Thank you, Dongj." Duan Mu hurriedly thanked him. However, the group quickly sat down. Because there were many people, for small tables were put together and they sat around them. Yun Jian followed the crowd and sat down beside Chuning. After Wu Yaotian found out about Yun Jian's identity, although he felt quite awkward, Yunjian was still the idol of the entire Min City Military Academy. Soon, the unhappiness from before was thrown to the back of their minds. Wu Yaotian and the others acted as if they were facing their idol and asked Yunjian one question after another. Wu Yaotian also held back his desire to tease Yunjian. At this moment he was talking to Yunjian purely as if he was talking to his idol. He had long abandoned his improper thoughts about Yunjian. Not long after Yunjian took her seat, a surprised exclamation sounded. It was from a girl who had just walked in from the entrance of the barbecue shop. "It's you? You're the girl who almost bumped into me at the stairs just now." As soon as the girl saw Yunjian, she pointed at Yunjian and exclaimed. Everyone in Yunjian's group immediately turned their gazes over. This girl was the one who almost bumped into Yunjian on the second floor of Yunjian's dormitory building. There were a few other girls standing beside the girl. After the girl who almost bumped into Yunjian spoke up, they pointed at Yunjian and exclaimed, "That's right." Chapter 1665. The girls standing next to the girl who bumped into Yunjian were obviously the ones who saw Yunjian unlock the door with the wire. Therefore the moment they saw Yunjian they exclaimed in shock. Those who were with Yunjian were surprised when they heard what the girls who had just joined the school said. "You know how to pry open the door without a lock?" Duanmu asked Yunjian in surprise. Everyone looked at Yunjian in shock. Yunjian was Team Monarch slashing God, which was enough to shock everyone present. However, who would have thought that Yunjian knew how to pry open the door? She opened the door to our female dormitory without using a key. She really gave us a fright. The girls were obviously still in shock from seeing Yunjian unlock the door. The crowd was in an uproar, shocked by Yunjian's ability. However, compared to that, the girl who almost bumped into Yunjian at the staircase but was dodged by Yunjian and hit her head hard was still holding a grudge. "Bro, it's this girl who made me get a big bump on my head. You have to avenge me." The girl who almost bumped into Yunjian just now tugged at the hand of the man beside her like a spoiled child and pointed at Yunjian as she spoke. The girl's name was Yang Lin. She was tall, not ugly, and had a great body. Yang Lin was a typical gangster girl while the man standing next to her was a gangster. Yang Lin liked to hang out with gangsters because she felt that she had a high status in school. Sometimes, she even felt that she could hold her head up high in school with the gangsters' protection. The man standing next to Yang Lin was not her biological brother. He looked up at Yunjian and told her in a roguish tone, "Brother Yang, you're the one who's being bullied. Were you the one who bullied my sister?" The moment he saw Yunjian's face, the man let go of Yang Lin's hand and walked toward Yunjian. "What do you want?" Duanmu asked the man coldly. "She bullied my sister. Of course we have to pay her back." The man cackled and sized up Yunjian. Nothing good would come out of being harassed by gangsters like this. Yang Lin crossed her arms and looked at Yunjian. She could almost imagine Yunjian begging for mercy. Seeing that Yunjian was ignoring him, the man took 2 steps toward Yunjian. Chi Mei, who was hiding in the dark, smirked. It seemed that Yunjian would be in trouble without her doing anything. Just when Yang Lin and Chi Mei saw the man take 2 more steps toward Yunjian, Yunjian's eyes flashed. With a glint in her eyes, she stood up abruptly from her seat and hollered, "Get down, all of you." Then she swept her leg at the man and kicked him in the knee, making him kneel on the ground. The people around them didn't know why Yunjian suddenly shouted for them to get down, but they all obeyed. "What's wrong with you?" The people around them who trusted Yunjian all got down. Yang Lin asked after Yunjian spoke. "That's..." Before she could finish her sentence, Chi Mei's heart almost jumped out of her chest at the scene in front of her. In the next second, Yunjian kicked a stool and sent it flying in the air. When the stool was kicked to its highest point in the air, a few gunshots rang out in the distance. Gunshots rang out and bullets flew toward them. Yunjian's kick sent the stool flying toward the bullets that were fired out of the blue right in front of everyone's eyes. Several bullets aimed at Yunjian were intercepted by Yunjian's stool. This scene frightened everyone present to the point that their faces turned pale. Especially Yang Lin and Chi Mei, who didn't trust Yunjian. This scene completely overturned everyone's understanding. A gun. She actually has a gun. But before everyone could be surprised by Yunjian's terrifying skills, Yunjian bent down and picked up 2 bullet shells from the ground. She narrowed her eyes and looked at a certain spot. She, who had been silent all this time, now played with the 2 bullets skillfully in front of everyone. Then she curled her lips into a strange smile. Chapter 1666. Yunjian fiddled with the 2 shiny bullet shells in her palm. She narrowed her beautiful eyes and stared at a dark corner of the food street. The food street was filled with snacks. The food street here was a straight street. If one were to cross left and right, they could pass through to a dark place or a street corner where there was no one. The two gunshots just now had only made two sounds. There was no doubt that the pistols were equipped with silencers. The sound of bullets fired from silenced pistols was so soft that no one on the busy food street noticed when the two bullets flew over. If Yang Lin, Qi Mei, Wu Yaotian, and the others hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they wouldn't have noticed the bullets flying over. Of course, Yun Jian, who was skilled with guns and ammunition, could easily smell the gunpowder even in this noisy food street. It was impossible for anyone who didn't come out of the assassin training camp to practice such sensitivity. Even if they came out of the assassin organization, they wouldn't have Yun Jian's ability. Yang Lin and Qi Mei screamed when they saw this. Ah, gun, gun, gun. There's a gun. After Yun Jian said this to the people in the dark, Yang Lin and Qi Mei finally reacted. Someone had fired a gun just now. There's a gun. There's a gun here. Yang Lin and Qi Mei were just cursing Yun Jian for suddenly shouting, "Get down." Both of them had a problem with Yun Jian. Just now they had been criticizing Yun Jian one after another. They both thought they had coordinated well. What else could Yun Jian say now? But they never imagined that someone would shoot them with a gun. A gun. Was a real gun. Both Yang Lin and Qi Mei were military medical students at the Min Military Academy. They had only heard the boys boasting about how they handled knives and guns and how they fought and killed. But now, such a thing was happening right in front of him. Lin Yang and Qi Mei were so arrogant just now. Now that they realized the danger, they squatted down with their hands over their heads, screamed and found the nearest table. Then they crawled under the table. Hearing Yang Lin's and Qi Mei's screams, the surrounding people who were eating supper were so scared that they quickly found a place to hide. Places with a lot of people were most afraid of rumors. When you were in a crowded place, if you yelled, "Someone is shooting," most of the people around you would definitely believe it. Because of this, the crowd became restless. Wu Yaotian and the others were so scared that they all found a place to hide and looked over. Chu Ning and the others also hid obediently and did not move. They were afraid of being a burden to Yun Jian. Yun Jian, who was standing in the same spot, smiled and walked out of the barbecue restaurant. She crossed her arms and looked at the darkness for a while. Then a woman walked out. This woman was very thin and had a good figure, but her breasts were very small. She looked more like a Westerner. She held a Browning M1911 pistol in her hand and walked out from the dark seductively. This woman's code name was Ruin, and she was a killer known as the sharpshooter of the blood doll. Rumor had it that she once killed 3 birds with one shot. Her strength was amazing. Who is this? Wu Yaotian saw Ruin and the gun in her hand. He was so scared that his face changed and he turned to ask Yun Jian. Although the boys in the military academy liked to brag about themselves, when it came to critical moments, they were naturally afraid if they were not strong enough. Yun Jian ignored Wu Yaotian. She narrowed her eyes and looked at Ruin, who walked out from the dark. She did not look scared like the others. On the contrary, she looked at Ruin casually and looked up at her. There was a moment of silence. The people in the dark saw Yun Jian suddenly raise her hand and throw the 2 bullets in her hand to Ruin. Ruin's eyes flashed and she caught them. "I can't accept this greeting gift. But since you're here, don't even think about leaving." Yun Jian's red lips curved slightly as she said these words calmly. The people hiding in the dark thought that Yun Jian was too arrogant. But then they saw a sharp glint in Yun Jian's eyes. Chapter 1667. Ruoyin was standing not far away with the Browning pistol in her hand. Yun Jian's lips curled slightly. She pursed her lips and stared at Ruoyin with her sharp eyes. Just as everyone was shocked by Yun Jian's arrogant words, Yun Jian's next move made everyone's expression change. Everyone was still thinking that the woman called Ruoyin was holding a pistol. And Yun Jian. She dared to speak to Ruoyin in such a tone. Did she think that she could beat Ruoyin just because she kicked out a stool to block Ruoyin's 2 shots? Yun Jian, be careful. Although Chu Xiangnan and the rest knew about Yun Jian's skills, they still shouted at Yun Jian worriedly. Why did she have to drag us down if she wants to die? Didn't she see the gun in that woman's hand? What if that gun hurts us? Why is she so selfish? Can't she just die and not drag us down with her? Chi Mei was so scared that she hid under the table and trembled. As she trembled, she did not forget to curse Yun Jian while sobbing. It's all Yun Jian's fault. It's all Yun Jian's fault. So what if Yun Jian is Team Monarch/in God? That woman has a gun. Can she win against that woman? Not only will she not win against that woman, but she'll also get everyone killed. The entire process took no more than 3 seconds. It was also at this moment that what happened Yun Jian had already overturned everyone's understanding. Hand. This scene was unforgettable for everyone present. She was not weak. In the next breath, she did not even have time to react before Yun Jian kicked her to the ground. Ruoyin's eyes sharpened and she was about to raise the Browning pistol in her hand. Ruoyin was about to struggle when she suddenly heard the sound of 2 steps and jumped in front of Ruoyin. Yun Jian had taken the Browning pistol from Ruoyin's hand and pressed it against the back of Ruoyin's head. Yun Jian's skills were amazing. When the crowd in the distance saw this scene, over yet. They could not help but be dumbfounded. Was still raising her Browning pistol. Yun Jian had actually taken the pistol from this woman's hand, and from this woman's skills, it could be seen that she was definitely raised her gun and aimed. Yun Jian was known as a sharpshooter by Ruoyin's hands like a snake. Ruoyin was probably a member of the assassin organization. Ruoyin's left hand and Yun Jian had just slammed her pistol from Ruoyin's hand. Ruoyin's hand went limp from the impact. The speed at which she snatched the pistol was faster than the speed at which she fired it. Slipped to the ground. This little girl is too scary. Yun Jian caught the Browning pistol without even looking at it when she attacked in shock and let out a cry of shock. The gun. The other hand that was wrapped around Ruoyin's right hand grabbed onto her right hand. They saw Yun Jian pressing the gun against the back of Ruoyin's head and rapidly struck the bones of Ruoyin's right arm. Ruoyin wanted to fight back. Chapter 1668. But Yun Jian had already hit her in every part of her like sharp silver needles, so she didn't have any piercing Ruoyin's heart. She widened her eyes in shock and wanted to kick Yun Jian with her long legs. Incompetence as a sharpshooter. Yun Jian had already was famous as a sharpshooter with the gun, but she couldn't even protect her most commonly used pistol, causing Ruoyin to kneel on the ground. But she had no choice. Yun Jian's strength was too strong, so strong that even if she was unwilling, she had no choice but to accept it. As expected of an SS losing to you, I'm convinced, Ruoyin said. She didn't show any fear of Yun Jian pointing a gun at the back of her head. After all, she was an assassin who was used to all kinds of situations. Her ability to endure was naturally not something an ordinary person could compare to. Seeing that Yun Jian was suppressing Ruoyin, Yang Lin and Chi Mei, who were cowardly crawling under the table, quickly crawled out from under the table. Who told you to shoot at us just now? Yun Jian, hurry up and kill her. She almost killed us just now. I'm so angry. Chi Mei was just blaming Yun Jian for provoking Ruoyin, who had a pistol in her hand. She was asking why Yun Jian didn't die by herself and insisted on letting everyone take the risk with her. But now Yun Jian had snatched the pistol from Ruoyin's hand and even pointed it at the back of Ruoyin's head. Even though Chi Mei was unhappy with Yun Jian before, she didn't dare to target Yun Jian now. Chi Mei even had thoughts of pleasing Yun Jian. As for Wu Yaotian, who wanted to take liberties with Yun Jian, or the very upright Duan Mu, or the man Yang Lin called brother, everyone was looking at Yun Jian with shocked and frightened eyes. At this moment, no one dared to stand out and say a word. Except for Chi Mei. Chi Mei had just criticized Yun Jian with harsh words, but now that she saw Yun Jian's terrifying strength, she went from being unhappy with Yun Jian to now standing up to please Yun Jian. Everyone present was watching Chi Mei's every word and action. Even those standing beside Chi Mei rolled their eyes at her. Quick, shoot her. Let her know how powerful we are. She actually wanted to kill us. He really dared to do that. Yun Jian, hurry up and shoot her. Anyway, you're a popular person in our military academy. Even if you really kill someone, the officers will protect you. Chi Mei was indeed a talent. Seeing that Yun Jian had subdued Ruoyin, Chi Mei, who had previously treated Yun Jian as her mortal enemy, immediately treated Yun Jian as one of her own. She even incited Yun Jian to kill Ruoyin. Those who didn't know better would think that Yun Jian was Chi Mei's subordinate. Seeing that Yun Jian had pressed the muzzle of the pistol to the back of Ruoyin's head, Chi Mei's incessant words continued to spread. As she spoke, she walked towards Yun Jian. She already treated us like that just now, and you're still not going to kill her? Weren't you very powerful just now? And didn't you once annihilate an entire gang by yourself? Why don't you dare now? Chi Mei's voice continued to ring out. The crowd watching this scene from afar was deeply disgusted by Chi Mei's actions. However, just as Chi Mei was about to reach Yun Jian suddenly turned around and let go of the suppressed Ruo Yin. She turned around and kicked the completely unprepared Chi Mei. Chi Mei still treated Yun Jian as one of her own, so she was full of confidence that Yun Jian wouldn't do anything to her. But at this moment Yun Jian suddenly kicked Chi Mei's abdomen in the air. She kicked Chi Mei far away on the spot, then held the pistol and fired a few shots at Chi Mei, who was thrown to the ground. Bang 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 bang.
5 shots.
Yun Jian's marksmanship was so accurate that it was frightening. These 5 shots hit Chi Mei's forehead, her left arm grazed the side, her left leg grazed the side, her right arm grazed the side, and her right leg grazed the side of her head. Her marksmanship was exquisite, and the shots just grazed Chi Mei's 5 sides and shot into the cement floor.
5 shots.
If any of them were slightly off, Chi Mei would definitely be injured. This scene happened so quickly that Chi Mei's face turned pale with fright. The surrounding crowd was also shocked by Yun Jian's shots, and their hair stood on end. They saw that Yun Jian had already pointed the muzzle at Chi Mei's temple. In front of everyone present, she spoke coldly to Chi Mei. Chapter 1669. Yun Jian let go of Ruo Yin and turned around to kick Chi Mei, pointing the gun at her. This action caused everyone present to be astonished. Oh my God! Some people in the crowd covered their eyes as if they could imagine Yun Jian shooting Chi Mei's head. But at this moment no one pitied Chi Mei. Not only did Chi Mei's actions make Yun Jian unable to take it, even the people who were standing far away were disgusted. What Chi Mei had done just now made everyone present extremely disgusted. Some people were even annoyed with Chi Mei and wanted Yun Jian to shoot Chi Mei to death. This girl has a big mouth. I can't stand her. A middle-aged man who was standing far away spat on the ground after being angered by Chi Mei's attitude. In the eyes of everyone present, Yun Jian's action was purely to vent her anger. Cough cough. I don't mean to say this, but this girl is more than a little annoying. Even Ruo Yin, who was hostile towards Yun Jian, did not leave after being released by Yun Jian. She walked to Yun Jian's side, touched her chin and complained. Ruo Yin was not afraid that Yun Jian would catch her again. She walked to Yun Jian's side and commented. Yun Jian pointed the gun at Chi Mei's head and turned to look at Ruo Yin. Why aren't you leaving? Do you want me to kill you? I'm not asking for it. Ruo Yin stood beside Yun Jian, shaking her slender and long legs as she looked at Chi Mei, who was kicked out by Yun Jian. Chi Mei was so scared that her face turned pale. She got up from the ground almost immediately and kowtowed to Yun Jian, begging for mercy. No, don't kill me. I was wrong. Put the gun away. I won't dare to do it again. Chi Mei was a person who paid a lot of attention to her appearance. She could even show off her most beautiful appearance in front of the boys. She only ate 1 meal a day just to lose weight and shape her perfect figure to present in front of the boys. Of course, all of this was under the premise that their lives were guaranteed. At this moment, even his life was not guaranteed. What was the point of caring about his appearance and image? Therefore, Chi Mei directly knelt down and kowtowed to Yun Jian. Her whole body trembled like a spring. Oh, such guts. Weren't you very powerful just now? Ruo Yin saw Chi Mei kneel down in front of Yun Jian. Her body was trembling like a spring, as if she had been greatly frightened. She stood aside and couldn't help but sneer. Ruo Yin was in no hurry to leave. Yun Jian's red arc slightly raised. She pulled the bolt of the pistol. In the midst of Chi Mei's begging and kowtowing, Yun Jian pursed her lips. The next second, she said with an indifferent expression, "You can die now." As soon as she finished speaking, a bang sound rang out. The moment Chi Mei heard the gunshot, she seemed to have been seriously frightened. She fell straight to the ground and fainted completely. Everyone standing in the distance was frightened by Yun Jian. She really shot. Was she really going to kill Chi Mei? But before anyone could react, they saw Yun Jian suddenly point the gun at the dark place where Ruo Yin had just come out from. With a bang sound, Yun Jian's shot directly into the dark place. What was Yun Jian doing? Everyone present widened their eyes in shock. After the shot was shot into the dark place, a slender man of about 182 meters in height, who looked handsome just by looking at his figure, easily dodged Yun Jian's shot and exposed himself to everyone present. The man was about 23 years old. He wore a hoodie with a collar on his head, but it couldn't stop his handsome face from appearing and disappearing in the dark. When she saw the man, Yunjian narrowed her eyes and smiled contemptuously. Chapter 1670. Ruo Yin's expression changed when she saw that Yunjian had fired a shot and forced the handsome young man out of the shadows. She had actually discovered their leader hiding in the shadows. Ruo Yin's face turned pale with fright. She had originally thought that with her abilities she would be able to take 1 or 2 blows from Yunjian. However, she had never expected that Yunjian would be able to subdue her in 1 blow. This was not a big deal. After all, Yunjian's identity was not to be underestimated. However, Ruo Yin had never expected that Yunjian had already discovered their leader hiding in the shadows. Yunjian had not said anything, but that did not mean that she had not discovered their leader's existence. Ruo Yin was well aware of their leader's abilities. However, Yunjian had actually seen through everything with 1 glance. Normal people might not have been able to see through Yunjian's shot, but Ruo Yin, who was also an assassin, could see through it with 1 glance. Yunjian's shot had just happened to be aimed at the Blood Doll leader's hiding spot. Her speed, direction, and distance were all very accurate. If the leader did not walk out in front of everyone, he would have been hit by Yunjian's shot. Yunjian had controlled the speed of the shot just now perfectly. If the Blood Doll leader did not walk out, he would have been hit by that shot. Therefore, Yunjian's shot had successfully forced the Blood Doll leader who was hiding in the dark to come out. Leader. Ruoyin suppressed the shock in her heart. She turned her head to the side to look at her Lord Chief and bowed to her. The Blood Doll leader's name was Di Lin. At this moment, Di Lin was dressed in black from head to toe. The hat behind his collar was also black. In this dark night, under the illumination of the surrounding neon lights, Di Lin's appearance was faintly discernible. This was a very young but pale face. He was handsome and spirited, but at this moment his face was so pale that it made people feel a little scared. Di Lin didn't show any signs of panic after being discovered by Yunjian. He waved his hand at Yunjian, who was bowing to him, and stood in front of Yunjian. Di Lin was about 182 meters tall, so Yunjian looked very short when she stood in front of Di Lin. But in terms of aura, Yunjian was many times stronger than him. Another person had arrived. Standing in the distance, Wu Yaotian Yang Lin, and the others were dumbfounded beyond words. Everyone stared blankly at the scene before them. Yunjian narrowed her eyes at Di Lin. "Tell me why you're here." Yunjian narrowed her eyes and asked calmly. "I'm here to find my woman," Di Lin said to Yunjian. He was wearing a black hoodie, so he looked like an emissary in the darkness. "Are you talking about Leng Mei, who was captured by me last time?" Yunjian played with the gun in her hand and looked at Di Lin playfully. Di Lin didn't reply to this question. Ruoyin, who was standing at the side, couldn't help but want to complain, but she held it in. Lung Mei was the #1 expert of Blood Doll. She was adopted by the leader's father when she was young and could be considered as the leader's childhood friend. Later on, the leader's father passed away and the leader inherited Blood Doll. He used the fastest speed to develop Blood Doll into the largest organization in Southeast Asia. Lung Mei had always been by the leader's side. Lung Mei became the leader's woman when she was 16. She was the leader's first and last woman. But the leader's attitude towards Lung Mei was like treating a tool to warm his bed. Lung Mei had always felt that she was the leader's tool and didn't dare to have any improper thoughts. In Blood Doll, who didn't know that Lung Mei was the leader's lover? Even Lung Mei herself thought that she was the leader's mistress. Ruoyin couldn't help but complain. She had long known that the leader treated Lung Mei differently. Not long ago, Lung Mei was captured by Yun Jian. Being captured by SS, Lung Mei could be killed at any time. Their leader, Di Lin, hadn't slept for a few days. This time he even rushed here to ask Yun Jian for Lung Mei. But when it came to Lung Mei, their leader wouldn't even mention the word love. Chapter 1671. No one could understand Ruoyin's worries. She had joined the Blood Doll organization later on. She had been in the Blood Doll organization when it was still a small organization. Until Di Lin's father passed away this year, Di Lin became the new leader of the organization. In less than half a year, the Blood Doll went from a small organization in Southeast Asia to wiping out all the organizations in Southeast Asia and becoming the #1 assassin organization in Southeast Asia. It could be said that Ruoyin witnessed the development of Di Lin and Lung Mei's relationship with her own eyes. Even a bystander like her was puzzled. Her leader liked Lung Mei but didn't say anything. It felt like the eunuch was more worried than the emperor. Even a eunuch like her was anxious to find a way to matchmake her leader and Lung Mei. It was so heart-wrenching. Yun Jian played with the gun in her hand and looked at Di Lin with a frivolous gaze, waiting for his reply. Yes, Di Lin said to Yun Jian expressionlessly. The woman he was looking for was Lung Mei, who was captured by Yun Jian last time. Seeing that the atmosphere had calmed down, Wu Yaotian, Duan Mu, Brother Dong and Yang Lin, who was holding a grudge against Yun Jian at the school dormitory, as well as the hooligan who called him brother, walked out of their hiding place. Even so, they didn't dare to come close. Who knew if the gun in Yun Jian's hand would go off accidentally? That was a gun. A real gun. If it went off accidentally, someone would die. Even so, everyone was confused by Yun Jian, Di Lin and Ruoyin's words. What was the Blood Doll organization? And Yun Jian captured someone called Lung Mei? What was going on? If they hadn't seen Yun Jian's gun go off with their own eyes and confirmed that it was a real gun, they would have thought that Di Lin and Ruoyin were actors hired by Yun Jian. His purpose was to flaunt his groundless abilities in front of everyone. At this moment, Yun Jian, who was standing in the middle of the food street and looking at Di Lin with frivolous eyes, suddenly smiled. She raised her beautiful eyes and stared at God's descent's eyes. After a moment of silence, she opened her mouth and said, "I'm sorry. I'm a person who never makes a losing deal. You can take him back, but I have a condition." Upon hearing that Yun Jian had a condition, everyone standing in the distance pricked up their ears to listen. "Speak," Di Lin said with a dark face. Yun Jian's smirk calmed down at once. Looking at Di Lin coldly, she recollected her playful expression and spoke in a chilling voice that rang in everyone's ears. "The Blood Doll belongs to me. You can take the person away." What she wanted was the entire Blood Doll organization. Even though the crowd did not know what the Blood Doll was, they could feel that it was not something ordinary. After hearing Yun Jian's words, everyone present gasped. They had to admit that Yun Jian was very arrogant. What she wanted was not money or status. She wanted the entire Blood Doll organization. You. Hearing this, Ruoyin's emotions tensed up. Unable to restrain herself, she almost attacked. "I can give her to you, but before I give you the Blood Doll, I want to see her in perfect condition." Di Lin waved his hand at Ruoyin and looked sharply at Yun Jian. When Di Lin said that, even Yun Jian was slightly shocked. The Blood Doll was not a small organization. In the past, it might have been a small organization in Southeast Asia, but now, it was the top organization in Southeast Asia. How could he give it up so easily? Deal. Even though she was doubtful, Yun Jian finished her sentence without changing her expression. What she wanted was not just the Blood Doll organization. She wanted everyone in the organization. Chapter 1672. I'll see you in Longmen City this Saturday. I'll bring you to her. Of course, you'll have to show your sincerity first, like, who's the mastermind behind the Blood Doll organization's mad pursuit of me? Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and looked at Di Lin, reverting to her usual demeanor. Unbeknownst to her, a smirk crept up the corners of her lips again. Yunjian crossed her arms and looked at Di Lin lazily, waiting for his reply. The crowd from afar had no idea what Yunjian and her friends were talking about due to the confusion they were having. What was the mastermind behind the Blood Doll organization's mad pursuit of her? Was the Blood Doll an assassin organization that had been hunting Yunjian recently? Yunjian was neither a leader nor an internationally renowned figure. Why would they want to hunt her down? No matter how many questions the crowd had, they dared not ask them now. What a joke. The gun in Yunjian's hand was not just sitting there without a use. The crowd was only slightly puzzled when they heard what Yunjian and her companions said. In spite of it, Ruoyin and Di Lin, who had always been calm, looked grim when they heard what Yunjian said. Yunjian was indeed an SS. She actually knew that the Blood Doll was hunting her down. The Blood Doll organization had interrupted the Kosha mercenaries' missions many times recently. It was not that the Blood Doll leader was stupid enough to do so. There was someone behind the Blood Doll. Di Lin's skin was pale. He was wearing a black hoodie, and his handsome face was covered by the black hoodie. Di Lin's expression darkened when he heard what Yunjian said, but it was hard to discern the change in his expression due to his pale complexion. Those who were more attentive would be able to tell that Di Lin was truly surprised by what Yunjian said. As long as she's unharmed, these aren't secrets, said Di Lin. After that, he turned and waved at Ruoyin before leaving to the dark corner of the food street. Did he mean that as long as Leng Mei was fine, everything would be fine? Right before Di Lin and Ruoyin were about to disappear from her sight, Yunjian added to their backs, You're right. Leng Mei is indeed in Longmen City. If you're smart, don't take the risk to rescue her. Otherwise her head will roll anytime. Yunjian's words were a threat, but it was also the truth. Yunjian was a woman of her word. He had never failed to get what he wanted. It was the same for the Blood Doll. Di Lin and Ruoyin paused in the darkness when they heard Yunjian, and then their figures flashed and vanished swiftly. Yunjian, who were those two people just now? Why did they want to kill you? Chuning and the others had been standing behind Yunjian since the beginning. Chuning blinked at Yunjian and asked. Yunjian's pretty eyes blinked at Chuning's question, her red lips curling. Just as everyone thought that Yunjian was going to defend herself, Yunjian relaxed and grinned at Chuning. Take a guess. After that, Yunjian walked around Chuning and the others to return to the table where they had barbecued skewers and sat on the stool. The people around them stood at the side. Due to what happened just now, no one dared to sit at the table recklessly. They were afraid that bullets would shoot out from the dark like just now. Yunjian sat at the table as if nothing had happened. She picked up a mutton skewer on the table and gobbled it down, commenting softly, Smells good. Looking at Yunjian's reaction and recalling Yunjian's ferocious skills just now, the people around them could not help gulping. If it were not for the mess around them, everyone would have thought that what happened just now was just a farce. Chapter 1673. Yunjian ate with relish. It was not until 30 minutes after Di Lin and Ruoyin left that the food street returned to its initial calm. Along the way, the police came to investigate the situation. But after finding out that no one was injured, they called the witnesses to register and did not make things difficult for Yunjian. Chi Mei was so frightened by Yunjian's shot that she fainted. Chi Mei thought that Yunjian's shot was aimed at her head, so she fainted. In the end, it was Wu Yaotian and the rest who reluctantly carried Chi Mei back to school. She only woke up when they arrived. Even though this incident had caused quite a stir locally, it was fortunate that it did not alert the school. Hence, no one knew that Yunjian and the rest had played truant at night. Yunjian returned to the dormitory. The radio was set up in every corner of the school. The next morning, if people were sitting in the cafeteria, they could still hear the radio. Even though she slept late last night, and at this moment, did not the gentle female voice on the radio spread to almost every corner of the cafeteria and went to the field for a few rounds of morning exercise. Of our school's grade by the time she reached the classroom, for winning the strongest female student had already started their morning inscribed by Principal Ma. The students of Min City Military Academy usually woke up at 5:30 a.m. and started with half an hour of morning reading. Please come to the Academic Affairs Office to receive your award. At 6. As soon as the gentle female voice on the radio exercise and head to the canteen for breakfast twitched. Half an hour of morning exercise, but all the every morning was already very tiring. Hence, when it came to breakfast, the students in the school would have a huge appetite. What the hell was this? Plus, when did this there was a lot of training in the military academy? How come it had never happened before? Both boys and girls had bigger appetites than students from other schools. If they could train, of course they could eat. Even if the students of the military academy had bigger appetites than students from other schools, they would still be slimmer and more muscular than students from other schools. At this moment Yun Jian, Lin Wan and Mu Ying were eating porridge in the canteen. Yun Jian ordered a bowl of porridge, 3 pumpkin pies, a bun and an egg. Compared to the average girl, Yun Jian's appetite was not small. At most it was shocking. But in the military academy, this kind of appetite was not small at all. Yun Jian, yesterday you... At the mention of Yun Jian and the others playing truant yesterday, Lin Wan paused for a moment. She looked around cautiously, then moved her head closer to Yun Jian. Lin Wan whispered in a voice that only Yun Jian, Mu Ying, and herself could hear. Was it fun to play truant yesterday to have supper? Looking at Lin Wan's curious look, Yun Jian's red arc curved. She didn't answer directly but pursed her lips and said, "You'll know when we go together next time." "I'm a good baby." Lin Wan shook her hands. She shook her head and moved her head away from Yun Jian. At this moment, a gentle female voice sounded from the school's broadcast system. Chapter 1674. Award. Strongest Female Student? It was personally inscribed by Principal Ma. "Yun Jian, was it because your performance at the selection round was too amazing and you won first place? That's why Principal Ma gave you such an award." And it was announced to the entire school. Lin Wan covered her mouth. Principal Ma's funny behavior made her laugh. Awarding certificates was something that happened in every school. However, the usual awards were nothing more than exemplary student, activist, good child, and so on. Higher up would be first prize, second prize, and third prize. At the very least it would be first prize, second prize, and so on. But what about Yun Jian? On the other hand, Principal Ma had personally written a certificate for her as the strongest female student. Before Yun Jian could enter the administration office, this award had never been given out by the female establishment and ordered Yun Jian to come back later. In other words, what Yun Jian received was the highest honor. I heard the announcement and came to collect my certificate. Was broadcasted. All the students around them were discussing who Yun Jian was crowned as the strongest female student award or title. After the female student heard Yun Jian's words, she sized up Yun Jian from head to toe. A freshman in grade 1 actually received Principal Ma's favor. So after hearing Yun Jian's words, she looked at Yun Jian with a questioning gaze. Yun Jian wasn't in a hurry. A grade 1 student could actually gain the favor with Lin Wan and Mu Ying after she finished her breakfast. If this wasn't getting in through the back door, then what was it? Yun Jian walked unhurriedly to the school's administration office. Early morning was the most she only wanted Yun Jian to come back later. At this time, all the teachers had gone to eat breakfast. Now that she heard that Yun Jian were left in the administration office, as Yun Jian, she was even just arrived to let Yun Jian administration office when the female students standing inside that the teacher isn't in the administration office. The teachers have all gone to the cafeteria. You're just here to get an award. If you have anything to say to the teachers, come back later. What if the administration office lost something because of most student of one of the teachers in the administration office? The female student didn't let go and aggressively said to one of their most trusted students. This female student was the most trusted student of one of the teachers in the administration office. Usually, when the teacher needed to organize information, the female student would be called to the office to help. Because she was deeply doted on by the teacher, the female student was especially arrogant in front of other students. There were always a few students in the school who were as obedient as lapdogs in front of the teachers. They would take on any chores or dirty work and were deeply trusted by the teachers. However, they were unusually arrogant in front of other students. The female student who stopped Yun Jian was such a person. Now that there were no teachers in the administration office, the female student felt that she was the one in charge of the administration office. Chapter 1675. This female classmate who was deeply doted on by the teacher and who usually followed the teacher around like a bootlicker was called Wang Tingting. Wang Tingting studied military medicine, which also meant that her strength was no different from that of a normal girl. A portion of the people in Min City's military school trained their skills every day. When they graduated, they would either become soldiers or special forces. There was also a portion of them who studied military medicine. Most of them were female. As a military medicine student, Wang Tingting didn't have a deep understanding of strength. Moreover, in Wang Tingting's impression, if a girl mixed with boys, trained her skills and lived like a boy, how could she be considered a girl? Moreover, even if a girl joined the military, how capable could she be? Wasn't it just to attract the boys' attention? Wang Tingting was like an obedient girl in front of the teacher. She usually didn't put on makeup and was ugly, but she knew how to flatter. In front of the teacher, she was very good at flattering. Wang Tingting was very proud to be able to survive until now and be treated like a treasure by the teacher. She was a classic example of fawning in front of the teacher and being arrogant in front of the students. She had the attitude of "I have the teacher's support." Wang Tingting obviously had a good relationship with the boys who were walking around the school during the break. Class usually didn't want to interact with her. The boys looked at Wang Tingting with strange eyes. With the boys and play around. Yunjian was beautiful, but the boys also had a good relationship with Wang Tingting to threaten her. Hearing that Yunjian was here to receive changing her expression, she recalled what she had heard on the radio just now. To get the certificate. The boys scanned Yunjian from head to toe. I already said that the teacher isn't in the academic affairs office now. Who was crowned as the strongest female student because you want to? By Principal Ma himself. If you have the guts, go and call the teacher back yourself. She looks so small. Otherwise, you can come and get the certificate later. Was a she-devil who weighed 100 kilograms. Blocked the entrance of the academic affairs office. The boys looked at Yunjian. She raised her head and looked at Yunjian. However, it didn't take long for the boys to look away. Are you helping the teacher here again? Yesterday, a few students in our school skipped school to eat supper at the snack street. Over from the side. Something big happened. These boys were obviously seniors in the third year of high school. Spoke up. After the boys walked over, Wang Tingting immediately became interested when she heard this. Then she turned to front of Yunjian and said to the boys, Wang Tingting felt that she got along well with these boys. She didn't listen to me. Moreover, these boys told her to come and collect the certificate later. Therefore, she felt that it was going to be responsible if something goes missing in the teacher's office. Wang Tingting wanted to brag in front of Yunjian about how knowledgeable these boys were, and wrong, so she quickly asked. Yunjian had clearly heard the announcement and came to receive the award. When young boys and girls gathered together, the thing they liked to talk about the most was gossip. She had even gossip from other people's mouths was far more interesting than hearing about what happened to themselves. A few boys wanted to brag about their gossiping skills in front of Yunjian, so they opened their mouths to talk. They didn't expect Wang Tingting to be so cooperative. As a result, the boys became even more excited. Bragging in front of girls was already a very fulfilling thing, let alone in front of a very beautiful female classmate. So the boys became more and more excited as they talked. Later on, that female classmate suppressed everyone. I heard that she was very powerful. Very cool. Yesterday, my brother also skipped school to have supper with his girlfriend. He saw it with his own eyes. That female classmate's strength can only be described with 4 words. Invincible. One of the boys' saliva splashed. Yunjian was far away, so she wasn't splashed. The boys standing in front of this boy and Wang Tingting were splashed by the boy's saliva. But at this moment, no one said anything. Wow, that's amazing. Then do you know who that person is from our school? Wang Tingting revealed a look of admiration. Speaking of this, Wang Tingting glanced at Yunjian. While admiring the powerful person mentioned by the boys, she didn't forget to look at Yunjian with disdain. That person is really powerful. What about you? I really don't know how you got that strongest female student award. Don't tell me you got it by sleeping with your body. Wang Tingting's last sentence was quite loud. Yunjian was very good-looking, but she was a freshman in high school. As a freshman, she didn't have much strength or experience. Her body was thin and weak and she only had good looks. So other than sleeping with others, how could she get this strongest female student award? Just as Wang Tingting finished speaking before Yunjian made a move, the boy who said that his brother saw the powerful scene of the female classmate yesterday with his own eyes pointed not far away and shouted in surprise. Look, that's my brother. I asked him to come over and tell you guys how powerful the female classmate he saw yesterday was. I heard that she snatched the gun away from him in an instant. Just as the boy finished speaking, he saw that his brother had already rushed over. Before the boy could finish his words, his brother had already looked at Yunjian as if he had seen his idol and shouted in surprise, "It's you." It's you? It's actually you. Yesterday you were the one who flew out of the bench to block the bullet. You even snatched the gun from the woman who was holding it. You even told her that you can't even protect your own weapon. What kind of sharpshooter are you? Classmate, you're my idol. When the boy's brother saw Yunjian, he was so excited that words couldn't describe it. Seeing this, the surrounding people were instantly dumbfounded. What? She was the girl who was rumored to have snatched the pistol from the enemy? When Wang Tingting heard this, she felt a pain in her head. For a moment, she had a feeling of disbelief. She was the female classmate that everyone was talking about. However, this was not the end. Immediately, everyone was stunned when they saw a slightly older figure walking over from not far away. The moment he saw Yunjian, this slightly older man actually started running. The people present focused their gazes. Wasn't this man the Min City Military Academy's Principal Ma? Why was Principal Ma here too? Wang Tingting and the boys present were a little stunned. Before she could recover from her shock, she saw Principal Ma running to Yunjian and speaking to her in a rather agitated tone. You're a genius, Mr. Ma. Classmate Yunjian, you really didn't let me down. You won first place in this selection competition. First place? Ah. Of the 100 Special Forces soldiers who participated in this selection competition, which one of them isn't the most powerful person in our country? And you actually won first place in the selection competition. Chapter 1677. As the principal of Min City Military Academy, Principal Ma was usually fierce, but he was very kind to students who needed help. However, as the principal of Min City Military Academy, he was not often in the school due to his official position. Therefore, most of the students only saw Principal Ma's serious face. Wang Tingting and the boys present were seniors in their third year of high school. They had been in Min City Military Academy for more than 2 years and it was now their third year. This was the first time they had seen Principal Ma so agitated. Come. Why are you still standing at the door? Go in. Come in for a cup of tea at the Academic Affairs office. Before Wang Tingting's face darkened, Principal Ma had already ushered Yunjian into the Academic Affairs office as if he was a leader. Wang Tingting stood at the entrance of the Academic Affairs office. It was her first time encountering such a situation. She could not leave as she had not completed her teacher's orders. She could not stay either. After all, she had spoken to Yunjian in that tone. She even said that Yunjian's strongest female student award came from sleeping with her. However, she would never have guessed that the female student who had snatched the gun from the bad guy during the heated discussion yesterday, and the one who won first place in the preliminaries, the famous slashing god of Team Monarch, was actually her. This reality made Wang Tingting, who had been bad-mouthing Yunjian, self-destruct. Not only that, Wang Tingting felt like her face had been slapped beyond recognition. Meanwhile, Principal Ma had already invited Yunjian into the Academic Affairs office. He personally pulled out a stool in front of Yunjian's desk for her to sit. Then he eagerly went to pour a cup of tea for Yunjian with both hands. Come. Drink some water first. Be careful, it's hot. I'll get you the award. After Principal Ma handed Yunjian the cup of tea, he went to get the award. Wang Tingting was dumbfounded by what she saw. Wang Tingting loved to flatter. Usually it would be impressive if she could flatter her teacher. In Wang Tingting's opinion, being able to curry favor with the principal was simply something to be proud of. However, when it came to Yunjian, it was the principal who was flattering her. Wang Tingting's eyes darkened. Just as she was about to turn around and look for the boys who had been showing off in front of Yunjian, she heard a voice coming from behind her. However, she suddenly realized that these boys had already slipped away when Principal Ma had politely invited Yunjian into the house. Just now, he wanted to show off in front of the beautiful junior, so he flaunted his vast knowledge. She didn't know that the person the boys were showing off to was Yunjian herself. Naturally, the boys were too ashamed to stay there. They didn't even say goodbye and ran away. In the end, Wang Tingting gritted her teeth and slipped away. She planned to wait for Yunjian to leave before coming back to deal with the things that the teacher had instructed her to do. Later, she would use the excuse of having a stomachache to tell the teacher that she had a stomachache, so she went back to the toilet first before coming back to tidy up. After sitting in the Academic Affairs office for a while, Yunjian returned to the classroom after being praised by Principal Ma. According to Principal Ma, the time to go to the hunting school had not been set yet, and they were still waiting for the notice. However, he told her to be prepared at all times. When the notice came, she would set off at any time. Yunjian acknowledged Principal Ma and returned to the classroom. A week passed quickly and it was Friday in the blink of an eye. He was not around on Friday. When Yunjian returned to Longmen City, she felt that the house was a little lifeless. She was not used to it, but the night passed just like that. The next morning, when the sun had just risen, there was a knock on the door. Yunjian did not even need to guess to know that it was Ruayin and Di Lin who were knocking. As expected, once the door opened, Yunjian saw Ruayin who had left after knocking on the door and Di Lin who stood behind her. Di Lin was still in his initial disguise. He was dressed in black from head to toe with a black hoodie on his head, but it could not hide his handsome yet slightly pale face. "I'm here to pick up my woman." Di Lin went straight to the point. Yunjian's lips curled into a smile. Chapter 1678. Let's go. Yunjian waved. She walked around Ruayin and Di Lin and led the way. Qin Yiru had gone to work at the florist early in the morning, so before Yunjian brought Ruayin and Di Lin to look for Leng Mei, they bought a few buns from the roadside and ate as they walked. Qin Yiru slept early and woke up early now. Working at the florist was not tiring at all. Other than taking care of the children, she looked much younger now compared to when she was working hard. Logically speaking, Qin Yiru should have spent the rest of her life at home 20 to 30 years earlier than her peers after giving birth to such a capable daughter like Yunjian. However, Qin Yiru insisted on going to work. That was because once a person lacked exercise, their body would deteriorate. Some elderly people had a common problem before they passed away, which was that they could not walk. Walking was considered exercise too. Once a person stopped exercising, they would soon become useless. Therefore, even if the elderly were seriously ill, they should never forget to bring them out for a walk. Even if they could not walk, they should push their wheelchairs out to get some sunlight. Even if they could not live to 100 years old, they could at least live longer. Qin Yiru had realized this long ago, so she could not stop exercising. After buying a few buns, Yunjian walked lazily on the way to Qin Yu's house while Ruayin and Di Lin followed her without a word. It was neither near nor far from Qin Yu's house to Qin Yu's suite. Yun Yi usually had extra classes on Saturdays. Her studies in Songshan High School were especially tight, so she did not have a break on Saturdays and Sundays. "We've walked so far. Are we there yet?" "Yes, you can't lie to us." Ruayin could not help but shout after walking behind Yunjian for a while. "I can't even afford a cab now after your people messed things up." "Take your time, don't rush. Also, don't call me SS here. You can call me Yunjian." Yunjian turned to Ruayin with a grin, half joking. Yunjian was referring to the fact that the blood doll had recently interfered with the missions of the kosher mercenaries. Ruayin was rendered speechless by Yunjian's words and was glared at by her own leader. Thus, Ruayin could only swallow the words she wanted to say back to Yunjian. "It's here." Yunjian led Ruayin and Di Lin on a leisurely walk for half an hour and finally arrived at Qin Yu's door. When she reached the door, Yunjian stretched herself. It's nice to take a walk in the morning." What's more, there were 2 lackeys following behind him. This feeling was not bad. Yunjian had the key to Qin Yu's house, so she took it out when they arrived at the door. As soon as the door opened, a graceful voice rang out from within the room. It's burnt? Ah. I've won 3 rounds today, so tonight's bowls, chopsticks, and our clothes are all yours." Yunjian had just opened the door when this graceful voice sounded. Yunjian raised a brow. Ruayin and Di Lin could not help the corners of their lips twitching when they heard the female voice. The female voice undoubtedly came from Leng Mei. Just as the female voice ended, another young voice continued, "Grandpa, let's go save Grandpa." Inside the house, Leng Mei, Qin Yu, and Gu Nianji were playing mahjong together. The 3 of them had nothing to do, so they decided who would wash the dishes and clothes today based on the outcome of the mahjong game. Leng Mei had won 3 rounds in a row. She spread out the mahjong tiles excitedly and stood up. The color TV next to her was still playing Qin Yu's favorite show, Calabash Brothers. Yunjian could not help the twitch of her lips when she saw this scene as soon as she stepped through the door. Leng Mei stood up excitedly and even made an "I've won" gesture. However, just as she stood up to cheer her victory, she caught sight of Yunjian, who was standing outside the door, and Di Lin, who was standing behind Yunjian and Ruayin. Leng Mei almost slipped when she saw Di Lin. She steadied herself and looked at Di Lin in shock. Leader, why are you here?" Leng Mei had always thought that she was just Di Lin's mistress. Now that she was captured by Yunjian, Di Lin would only give up on her as a pawn. Chapter 1679. Ruayin was dumbfounded when she saw Leng Mei wearing Qin Yu's rabbit slippers and cute teddy bear pajamas. She looked so relaxed and comfortable. When Leng Mei was in the blood doll, she had always presented herself as an aloof and cold person. What was up with her today, though? The moment the chief found out that Leng Mei was captured by Yunjian, he could not sleep well and did not eat much during the day. SS was known for their ruthlessness. Who knew if Leng Mei would be killed after being captured by Yunjian? However, reality proved that Ruayin and Di Lin were wrong. Not only was Lung Mei not dead, she was still wearing the rabbit slippers and teddy bear pajamas as she played mahjong with Qingyu and Gunyanji. After winning the game, she even jumped up excitedly to tell Qingyu and Gunyanji, who were in the same team as SS who captured her, that they would take care of the bowls, chopsticks, and clothes for the three of them tonight. Where was the danger? The chief was worried that something would happen to Lung Mei, so he gave the entire Blood Doll organization to Yun Jian. Yet Lung Mei was hiding here playing mahjong. Ruoyin, you're here too? Lung Mei looked at Ruoyin and lowered her hand that was raised in excitement. She gulped and looked at Di Lin and Ruoyin, her voice growing softer. Lung Mei, you're living such a comfortable life. The chief was so worried about you that he didn't eat or sleep well for the past few days. Ruoyin said to Lung Mei. However, just as Ruoyin said that, Di Lin glanced sideways and glared at her. This made Ruoyin, who wanted to exaggerate to Lung Mei about what Di Lin had done for her these days, shut her mouth. God, the chief's gaze was too scary. For the sake of her life, she should find a chance to tell Lung Mei, this slow-witted woman. Yun Jian stood at the door and watched Di Lin walk in. She walked over without a word to grab Lung Mei's hand, who was standing in front of the mahjong table, and dragged her out. Leader, how did you find this place? Before Lung Mei could finish her sentence, Di Lin dragged Lung Mei out of the room with a dark face. He did not say a word. The blood doll is yours. After dragging Lung Mei to the door, Di Lin turned to look at Yun Jian. After saying that, he dragged Lung Mei, who had no idea what had happened, out of the room. What? Why did the Blood Doll organization? Why did it belong to Yun Jian? What did the chief promise Yun Jian? Lung Mei suddenly had a bad premonition. However, just as Di Lin grabbed Lung Mei's wrist and was about to leave, Yun Jian's voice suddenly came from behind him. I'll take the Blood Dolls, but you're still the leader of the Blood Dolls. Di Lin stopped in his tracks. Leader, you gave her the Blood Doll? Why? Don't tell me it's because of me? Lung Mei was the #1 expert in the Blood Doll organization, but her EQ was nothing to scoff at. Lung Mei thought for a long time before realizing that Di Lin was doing all this for her. He didn't love her, so why would he give up the entire Blood Doll organization for her? Di Lin did not look at Lung Mei, but he tightened his grip on her wrist. He looked up and met Yun Jian's eyes. What she meant was, she took the Blood Doll, but he and the rest of the Blood Doll organization did not have to leave. It was just the Blood Doll organization working for her. That was all? Really? Di Lin was puzzled. Naturally, he did not want to give the Blood Doll that his father had created to someone else. However, he had no choice this time. Chapter 1680. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and looked at Di Lin with her pretty ones as she spoke solemnly. Her goal wasn't to take over Blood Doll from the very beginning. Instead, she wanted the Blood Doll, including everyone in the Blood Doll organization, to become her people. A powerful and capable person didn't mean that he had to take over a powerful company. Instead, he had to make all the powerful people in the company his subordinates and use them for his own purposes. Because a company itself wasn't valuable. What was valuable was not the company itself, but the powerful people in the company. Di Lin finally understood how terrifying Yun Jian was. Rumor had it that SS wasn't just powerful, she was also very calculative. She lived up to her reputation. Follow SS and you'll have meat to eat. Sure enough, this was not just a general statement. The mission to assassinate you and obstruct the kosher mercenaries was given a high reward by a man in a black robe. We're just taking the money. Di Lin didn't promise Yun Jian directly. Instead, he told her everything he knew to show his sincerity. Yun Jian said that he would still be the leader of Blood Doll, but Blood Doll would be under SS control from now on. Di Lin agreed to this. If Yun Jian wasn't SS, Di Lin would rather give Blood Doll away than work for Yun Jian. But Yun Jian was SS. Follow SS and you'll have meat to eat. For this reason alone, Di Lin agreed. I can feel your sincerity. Well then, it's a pleasure working with you. Yun Jian's lips curled up slightly. Let's have a pleasant cooperation. Di Lin and Yun Jian came to an agreement. Smart people like to talk to smart people. It wasn't without reason. Leader, Di Lin grabbed Lung Mei's wrist. She knew that everything today was for her sake. She couldn't help but feel guilty. Let's go home. Di Lin turned and walked out with Lung Mei's hand. Leader, I'm sorry. Lung Mei wanted to say something more apologetic. Don't call me Master Chief anymore. Di Lin grabbed Lung Mei's wrist tightly, then suddenly stopped and growled at her. But why? Lung Mei asked in confusion. Are you stupid? Don't scream if the leader asks you not to. Even Ruoyin couldn't help but worry about Lung Mei's EQ. Lung Mei swallowed her saliva and shut her mouth. When Lung Mei was about to disappear from Di Lin's grasp, Yun Jian saw Qing Yu and Gu Nianji running out of the house. Qing Yu stood at the door and waved at Leng Mei. Let's play a few hundred rounds of mahjong next time. I don't believe that I can't beat you. It was only after Leng Mei and the others left that Yun Jian turned to look at Qing Yu and Gu Nianji, her lips curling into a smile. Are you addicted to mahjong? Do you want to go to Asia and play mahjong under the warm sun? No need. Sister Jian, let's go out for a walk, ha. Qing Yu tugged at Gu Nianji's hand and dashed out. Yun Jian's lips curled up again at the sight of them. It was then that her phone rang. Looking up to see that it was Zhang Xiaofeng calling, Yun Jian looked up slightly and answered the call. Just as the call connected, the voice that came from the other end was not Zhang Xiaofeng but Ling Yichen. Ling Yichen spoke to Yun Jian in a hopeless and shaky tone. His voice came from the other end of the phone, accompanied by howls of pain and despair. Chapter 1681. Ling Yichen's words were laced with deep despair, sorrow and trembling. It was so soft that Yun Jian would not have heard it if she did not listen carefully. Such emotions would only be expressed when one's family member or important friend was in trouble. Such emotions were indescribable with words. It was a feeling of despair and sorrow dominating. Unable to speak due to the pain, one would tremble from fear, and the feeling that one had no future. Ling Yichen was in such a state now. Zhang Xiaofeng and Qin Sini were Ling Yichen's best friends. Therefore, when something happened to Qin Sini, Ling Yichen was dumbfounded. Although he was close to Qin Sini, it was not as close as Zhang Xiaofeng and Qin Sini. Ling Yichen used Zhang Xiaofeng's phone to call Yun Jian because Zhang Xiaofeng could not say a word after calling Yun Jian. How could Zhang Xiaofeng say something like that? Even the doctor said that Sini was dying. After Yun Jian heard Ling Yichen's words, her lackadaisical gaze sharpened. "Where are you?" Yun Jian asked curtly. "We're at Longmin City People's Hospital." Ling Yichen's voice had just rung when Yun Jian hung up. Ling Yichen did not get a reply from Yun Jian. Instead, what he got was the beeping sound of the phone being hung up. In less than 10 minutes, Yun Jian had arrived at Longmin City People's Hospital from Qing Yu's house. It was not close to Longmin City People's Hospital from Qing Yu's house. Yun Jian had intercepted a motorcycle midway to the hospital. Before she stopped the motorcycle, Yun Jian had told the owner to pick up his bike at the hospital. Hence, the owner had chased her all the way to the hospital before he could retrieve his bike safely. Of course, this was a story for later. Yun Jian drove the motorcycle to the hospital and dashed inside. Outside the emergency room, Zhang Xiaofeng was sitting on the floor paralyzed while Ling Yichen was not in a better state. There were a few adults sitting around with their heads lowered. They were no doubt Qin Sini's parents and relatives. When Yun Jian arrived, the emergency room door was already open. A doctor in white was reporting to the paralyzed Zhang Xiaofeng, Ling Yichen, and Qin Sini's parents and family members. The patient's time of death is October 17, 1999, 9:40 a.m. The doctor was still reporting the numbers, but the family members standing outside the emergency room have a mental breakdown. Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen were paralyzed, unable to say a word. No. No. How can my daughter be dead? She's so young. How can she be? Please, save her again. Save her. She's still so young. She hasn't even passed her prime yet. Doctor, I beg you. I'm begging you. Qin Sini's mother had already broken down. As she spoke, tears blurred her vision and she knelt down in front of the doctor. Qin Sini's relatives were all ashen-faced. What a good child. Was she gone just like that? Just as everyone was in despair and breaking down, wailing in grief and pain, their hearts constricted and their tears flowed uncontrollably, in the midst of the haze, a small and slender figure flashed past everyone's eyes. Before everyone could react, Yun Jian's petite figure was already standing in front of the doctor who reported the news of Qin Sini's death with a straight face. She reached out and grabbed the doctor's collar. She won't die. Get out of my way. The doctor refused to let her pass and even said to Yun Jian, I know you're upset, but the dead can't come back to life. Chapter 1682. Just as she said that, she was already holding a butterfly knife that she had pulled out of nowhere. The butterfly knife was already pressed against the doctor's neck agilely. Grim Reaper's hand. Who in this field did not know about the Grim Reaper's hand in the medical field? It was the living dead, the existence of flesh and bones. Even if it was a dead person who was carried into a coffin, the Grim Reaper's hand could revive the person in seconds. The legendary Grim Reaper's hand was not human at all. It was a living Huatua, a celestial being who had descended from the heavens. Therefore, when he heard Yun Jian's self-introduction, the doctor who was used to seeing life and death parting narrowed his eyes and staggered. Yun Jian had announced her identity directly so that there would be no obstacles. Now that she was confirmed dead, it meant that Qin Sini had been resuscitated many times in the hands of these doctors. The time wasted could have cost a person who could have been revived. This moment was different from when Qin Yuru's hand was injured back then. A life was at stake. If they did not resuscitate Qin Sini in the shortest time possible, even she would not be able to save her. Perhaps it was the way Yun Jian wielded the butterfly knife just now that was comparable to a doctor who held a scalpel for years and had amazing skill with it. The doctor who was expressionless earlier dashed to the director's office in horror after hearing Yun Jian's words. Qin Sini's relatives and friends who stood where they were had never heard of the Grim Reaper's hand. However, seeing the change in the doctor's expression just now, everyone placed their hopes on Yun Jian. In the end, Yun Jian entered the operating room under the pleading of Qin Sini's mother. 3 hours later, with the director's assistance, Yun Jian completed the operation that cut into the brain. The operation was completed successfully and Qin Sini was safe. The brain was the most dangerous part of the human body that could not be injured the most because it was the most important part of the human body. It was fine if other parts were injured, but if there was a problem with the brain that controlled the entire body, the danger was imaginable. When Yun Jian came out of the operating room and announced Qin Sini's rescue, the entire Longmen City People's Hospital was in an uproar. Qin Sini's parents were indescribably grateful to Yun Jian. Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen, who were paralyzed earlier, also recovered. Sini was still alive. It's good that he's alive. As long as he was alive, anything could be healed. What happened? Yun Jian asked Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yi after getting rid of the crowd. Half an hour later, Yun Jian arrived at the gate of No. 1 middle school alone. Yizhang was a key high school in Longmen City. Yizhang students had classes on Saturdays and only had weekend breaks from Saturday night to the weekend dinner time. Therefore, the students of No. 1 middle school were still in school. Qin Sini accidentally met the school beau of No. 1 middle school. In order to avoid the pursuit of the ugliest girl in No. 1 middle school, the school beau of No. 1 middle school treated Qin Sini as cannon fodder and madly pursued her. The ugliest girl in No. 1 middle school came from a wealthy family. She was a very powerful person. Therefore, the school beau of No. 1 middle school was pestered by her as well. The ugliest girl in No. 1 middle school thought that the school beau of No. 1 middle school had really fallen in love with Qin Sini, so she pushed Qin Sini down from the second floor and her head hit the ground when she was arguing with Qin Sini this morning. That was right. Yun Jian was here to avenge Qin Sini. Without a doubt, Qin Sini had become the group's scapegoat. Moreover, with the ugliest girl's family background, even if something really happened to Qin Sini, the girl would be fine as she was still underage. At most, she would be sent to the police station for a while before she was released. When Yun Jian entered the school gate, the guard uncle stopped her, but Yun Jian leaped through the 2-meter-tall gate. The guard uncle was so frightened that he dared not chase after her. No. 1 middle school's second-year class 6, the class of the school beau. He Qingjun, that Qin Sini from first-year class 2, is in deep trouble because of you. She might not even be alive now. Aren't you afraid? A boy was talking to another good-looking boy. If you didn't mention it, I would have forgotten about her. Hey, I didn't push her. Why should I be afraid? The boy called Qingjun said confidently. At this moment, a petite and beautiful figure appeared at the gate. While the crowd was amazed by Yun Jian's beauty when she came in, they did not forget to gossip about her. However, Yun Jian glanced over and asked coldly, "Who is the school beau of No. 1 middle school?" It's him. Beauty, why are you looking for the school beau of No. 1 middle school? Don't tell me you want to chase him? Ah. The boy who was talking to the school beau of No. 1 middle school, Zhang Qingjun, immediately pointed at Zhang Qingjun and teased Yun Jian with a smile. Everyone in the class laughed when they heard this. As soon as the boy finished speaking, Zhang Qingjun brushed his bangs and was about to exclaim about his charm. However, Yun Jian's figure flashed. She quickly drew her knife and the butterfly knife flew out like a sword. She appeared in front of Zhang Qingjun in an instant, grabbed the butterfly knife and stabbed it directly into Zhang Qingjun's thigh in front of everyone. Chapter 1683. When Yun Jian entered the classroom to ask who the most handsome guy in E was, the students in class 2-6 had thought that Yun Jian was a student from another school. Zhang Qingjun was very famous in Longmen City. Due to his good looks and results, many high school students in Longmen City knew who he was. Even some of the junior high school students knew who Zhang Qingjun was. Therefore, the students thought that Yun Jian had chased after Zhang Qingjun, the most handsome guy in their school, because she admired him. In spite of it, no one expected Yun Jian, who gave off the impression of a meek high school girl the moment she appeared, to suddenly appear in front of Zhang Qingjun in a few blinks. His skills were like those of a martial artist. Everyone was dumbfounded when they saw an ordinary girl display such a powerful ability. That was not the end of it. The students in the class saw Yun Jian appearing in front of Zhang Qingjun in a flash. While he was feeling good about himself, she flipped her hand and stabbed a knife into Zhang Qingjun's thigh before anyone could react. She then uttered the words that made the pupils of all the students in Zhang Qingjun's class shrink. However, at this moment, Zhang Qingjun's piercing scream had already sounded. The pain of being stabbed in the thigh by Yun Jian was far more real and terrifying than one could imagine. The students who witnessed the scene dashed out of the classroom in fright to call for the teacher. Only a few braver ones or Zhang Qingjun's friends remained in the classroom. You're Qin Sini's friend. Why didn't she tell us that she has such a powerful friend like you? Otherwise they would never have provoked Qin Sini. The few boys in the class who played with Zhang Qingjun and even instigated Zhang Qingjun to cause trouble for Qin Sini were so scared that their faces turned pale. When they heard Yun Jian asking about Zhang Qingjun earlier, they were still standing by the side, mocking and exaggerating while whistling and watching the show. At this moment all of them were scared half to death. Yun Jian was obviously not an ordinary person. Wasn't Qin Sini just the daughter of a wealthy businessman? How did she get to know such a terrifying friend? Why would a normal girl rush up and stab a knife into someone's thigh? It was such a terrifying scene. Normal girls would be scared just by imagining it, but what about her? After stabbing the knife into Zhang Qingjun's thigh, she actually said those words without changing her expression.
Teacher Gua. Right here.
A girl rushed into our class and stabbed Zhang Qingjun's leg with a knife. Outside the classroom, the voice of the student who had run out to call for the teacher could be heard. Soon, a male teacher with a large pile of fat on his abdomen and a shiny scalp walked into the classroom under the protection of the crowd. As soon as this male teacher called Teacher Gua entered the classroom, all the students present quieted down. Seeing Zhang Qingjun rolling on the ground, Mr. Gua's face darkened. He shouted to the surrounding students, "Go and call an ambulance." After shouting, Mr. Gua looked at Yun Jian and said fiercely, "Which school are you from? How did you get in? You're so young and you don't learn good things. How dare you hurt someone in our school? Don't think that you can't go to the police station because you're not 18 yet. If you dare to hurt someone in public, you'll definitely go to the juvenile detention center for 10 to 8 years." Zhang Qingjun's family background was not ordinary. Now that something had happened to Zhang Qingjun at school, Zhang Qingjun's family would naturally not let Yun Jian off. Seeing Mr. Gua's appearance, Zhang Qingjun's friends who were afraid of Yun Jian just now calmed down a little. Mr. Guo was a physical education teacher in No. 1 high school. At the same time he had undergone strict training. His strength was naturally different from ordinary people. With Mr. Guo around, everyone believed that Yun Jian would not dare to do anything. However, after hearing Mr. Guo's words, Yun Jian gave a cold smile. She raised her foot and stepped on the butterfly knife that had pierced into Zhang Qingjun's thigh, sending the knife further in. This time, Zhang Qingjun curled up in pain and finally fainted. The surrounding people looked at Yun Jian in disbelief, who still dared to make a move. However, when they heard Yun Jian's words, they said coldly and arrogantly, "Tell your principal of No. 1 high school to come and see me immediately. Otherwise I'll kill him right now." Chapter 1684. She wasn't joking. At this moment, everyone was shocked by Yun Jian's actions. If the first stab wasn't enough to make Zhang Qingjun faint, then when Yun Jian stepped on his wound a few more times, it was simply fatal. Ordinary girls would be scared when they saw such a scene, but this girl? Not only was she not afraid, but she also did something even more shocking. "Go and call the principal." Mr. Gua, who was very calm just now, also panicked. He was so scared that his face changed and he quickly shouted at the students behind him. If a person's aura could support the sky, then Yun Jian's aura was enough to make Mr. Gua's legs go weak. Before becoming a physical education teacher, Mr. Gua had undergone professional strength training. Although Mr. Gua was fat, when he fought, his speed was faster and more agile than most people. However, in front of Yun Jian's aura, Mr. Gua didn't even dare to say a word. After about 3 minutes, the principal of No. 1 high school was called here in a hurry. Seeing Zhang Qingjun unconscious on the ground with his thigh bleeding, the principal's face instantly turned extremely pale. Zhang Qingjun's family background was not ordinary. His parents' company was famous in the entire Zhe province. Most importantly, Zhang Qingjun's father was the director of No. 1 high school. If Zhang Qingjun's father found out that something had happened to Zhang Qingjun in school, then he wouldn't be able to be the principal anymore. Therefore, when Principal Shi of No. 1 high school saw this scene, he was scared silly.
You. Stop.
Seeing Yun Jian deal with Zhang Qingjun, Principal Shi was so scared that he rushed over to stop her. You can come over, but my knife doesn't have eyes. When Yun Jian saw this, she flipped her hand and held another butterfly knife in her palm. Then she swung the butterfly knife and placed it on the neck of the unconscious Zhang Qingjun as fast as she could. A knife again. How many knives is she hiding on her body? Why can't I tell that she's hiding a weapon just by looking at her appearance? Is she an agent in the movies? She can actually hide a weapon on her body. When the surrounding students saw Yun Jian take out another butterfly knife, they immediately widened their eyes in horror. Even if an ordinary person were to hide money on their body, they wouldn't be able to do it without making a sound. They also couldn't guarantee that the money wouldn't be lost if it was hidden in their clothes. However, she had hidden 2 butterfly knives. These 2 butterfly knives were not small. She hid them on her body without any flaws. Was this something an ordinary girl could do? No. Stop. I will do my best to satisfy you. As long as you put down the knife. Principal Shi was scared out of his wits by Yun Jian's actions. He waved his hand to show his weakness to Yun Jian. Hearing this, Yun Jian kicked the fainted Zhang Qingjun away. Chapter 1685. Yun Jian's insolent words were like a landmine that spread to every corner of the place, stupefying everyone for a moment. When they came back to their senses, they were bewildered. Bomb number 1 middle school? She had the ability to bomb the entire school? The students present were slightly taken aback. Look, she said she's going to bomb number 1 middle school. Some of the students were stunned for 2 seconds after hearing what Yun Jian said before bursting into laughter. The students were genuinely thinking that it would be great if Yun Jian really had the ability to bomb number 1 middle school. However, the problem was that she, a teenage girl, actually said she was going to bomb number 1 middle school. Would it not be a joke if she said something like that? The students around them could not stop guffawing when they heard what Yun Jian said, but Principal Shi and Teacher Guo could not bring themselves to laugh. So arrogant at such a young age. As the principal of number 1 middle school, I've given you a chance, but you're so stubborn. You're a lunatic. Principal Shi shouted through gritted teeth at Yun Jian. Even Principal Shi was infuriated by what Yun Jian said. Yun Jian smirked when she heard that. Yun Jian then dialed a number right in front of Principal Shi. Coordinates to the principal's office in Country Zhejiang Province, Longmen City number 1 middle school. Lock on and bomb it. The students who thought that Yun Jian was joking thought that Yun Jian was crazy when they heard what Yun Jian said. She's from a mental hospital, isn't she? Let's go tie her up and send her back to the mental hospital. A male student at the side seemed to have snapped out of it as he pointed at Yun Jian and said to the group. Other than a lunatic, who else would do such a series of things just now? Other than a lunatic, no one else would do what Yun Jian did, right? Stabbing someone's thigh, saying she was going to bomb the school, and even dialing a number. No normal person would do that. Actually, the male student only said this because he wanted to take a few bites of Yun Jian's tofu when he rushed over to tie her up. Even if Yun Jian was really crazy, how could there be such a beautiful crazy person in the world? The surrounding boys were all thinking that if Yun Jian was really crazy, when Yun Jian returned to the mental hospital, they must go to the mental hospital one by one to find her. Do some disgusting things. Boys in their youth wouldn't think too much about the future, but some boys would even do things that they shouldn't do in order to show off their prowess. As a result, many girls in the real world were deceived by boys of this age with flowery words, and in the end they ended up in a miserable state. After listening to the male student's words, these boys started to fantasize. If Yun Jian was really a patient who escaped from a mental hospital, then wouldn't they be able to do whatever they wanted? However, just as this group of disgusting boys were imagining things that they couldn't accept and were about to walk towards Yun Jian one by one, trying to suppress Yun Jian together, in the distance, a loud roar came from the office building. Boom! That sound was so loud that it almost shook the sky as if the eaves were about to collapse. Hearing this loud sound, the boys who wanted to do something, as well as Principal Shi, Teacher Guo, and the others, were all shocked. When the sound of the explosion had just subsided, Principal Shi suddenly trembled. After he came to his senses, he ran from the classroom to the classroom corridor as fast as he could. From the classroom corridor, one could see the office building in the distance. At this time, everyone could clearly see that in the office building in the distance, only the principal's office had been directly blown up. The other rooms in the office building were intact. Seeing this scene, the principal screamed, "My office! My office!" At this point, the principal and all the students present looked at Yun Jian fiercely. What she just said was true. Who the hell was she? She could actually order people to directly target and blow up an office. At this moment, everyone's faces looked as if they had eaten dog shit. They couldn't bear to look at it directly. Chapter 1686. Everyone at the scene was shocked, especially Principal Sher. Principal Sher was scared out of his wits. When he came back to his senses after a long time, he pointed at Yun Jian with his trembling fingers that could not be looked straight at. Shaking like a ball, he shouted a string of "you," but no words came out of his mouth in the end. It could focus on the sniper's spot on the office floor. Qin Yu clapped her hands and retracted the mini cannon she had aimed at the principal's office. It's powerful. These two potions can cause a huge explosion when mixed together. It feels like a cannon attack on a building, but actually, if the police investigate, they'll only find out that it's an explosion caused by two chemical potions. The school has chemical potions too, so the final conclusion of the investigation will be that 2 bottles of chemical potions were accidentally placed in the principal's office and caused a natural disaster. They'll never guess that it's Sister Jian. Perfect. Wrap up. Qin Yu put her mini cannon back into her concoction box and clapped her hands, turning to chuckle at Gunyenji. The chuckle sent chills down Gunyenji's spine. So, it could be done like this? Using chemical potions to create an illusion that the office was destroyed by a cannon. Zhang Qingjun was sent to the hospital by the ambulance destroyed with a cannon. The police would definitely investigate Yun from leaving Yi Hai. Yun Jian still had to survive in Longmen City after all. When she was faced with such a terrifying person. Qin Yu's research on poisons had reached a new level. Yun Jian all the more. She had turned them into chemical potions. Of course, he would not let the matter go just like that. Suddenly grabbed Qin Yu and blinked her mischievous eyes, telling her, "The police would definitely investigate as your disciple." He would say more when the time came, including Zhang Qingjun's injury, and have the police deal with Yun Jian as well. I want to eat 10 had no idea that his office looked like it was destroyed by a cannon on the surface, her hand on her stomach, but it was actually a huge explosion with a gaze that said, bottles of chemical potions mixed together. It's no big deal. After leaving Yi Hai, Yun Jian hailed a cab to a villa in Longmen City. Gunyenji hugged the cab, even made a trip to both of them left the Falcon Hall's headquarters. Inside and outside the classroom corridor, Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen got into the car, petrified from the shock, and all the students around him were dumbfounded. That girl called Chen Yaching is Chen Fugui's no one was acting normal. Chen Fugui is the richest and most powerful tycoon in the shifted their attention back to Yun Jian. He's currently staying in Longmen City's still standing at the same spot. Once Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen got into the car, then Yun Jian looked around and said to all the students about Falcon Hall, "If you're smart, Zhang Xiaofeng come to investigate my friend's case, were usually helping Zhang Jifan manage new crews when they had nothing to do. Otherwise, don't blame me for blowing up everyone's Falcon Hall collaborated. That's right, I'll blow up your people as well." And Ling Yichen was no one in the principal's Falcon Hall in secret, so only the principal's office was destroyed, and Ling Yichen were all genius was to intimidate everyone present. Now that new crews had become Country Z's leading brand, Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen's help was indispensable. If Chen Yaching knew what Chen Sini was doing in new crews, she would not dare do anything to Chen Sini. Although Chen Yaching's father was the richest tycoon in the southern region, he was nothing compared to new crews. "Go to Jiefeng Road," Yun Jian said to the cab driver with a grim expression. Jiefeng Road, Villa Forest. There were many villas here, but there was only one villa that was the biggest on Jiefeng Road. This villa was naturally Chen Yaching's home. At this moment, the guard at the entrance of the villa was still watching the door while munching on melon seeds. At first glance, he saw a slender young lady with 2 handsome young men following behind her. Each of them had their own strengths as they walked towards him. The young girl walked at the front, and the 2 youths behind her were like her subordinates. The reason why the guard thought so was because the girl's aura was simply too powerful. She was so powerful that the guard could only watch as Yun Jian stood in front of the door, cracked the password lock, and walked into the villa within 3 seconds. It was only after she had walked far away that the guard reacted. Hey. He couldn't leave. You can't leave. By the time the guards chased after them, Yun Jian and the other 2 had already disappeared. Rich and powerful families often held parties. At this moment, Chen Fugui had invited all the socialites and handsome men of the same age to hold a party at his house. Chen Yaching was also wearing a gorgeous dress, and chatted with the handsome men of the upper class as if nothing had happened. "Your daughter is becoming more and more beautiful." In the corner, a bald middle-aged man praised Chen Yaching against his conscience. In fact, Chen Yaching's ugliness was unrivaled. Chen Fugui was amused when he heard that. He even nodded and clinked his wine glass with the middle-aged man's. However, at the moment when the 2 wine glasses touched, the door was kicked open. The door was not kicked open, but was directly kicked open from outside. The entire door was spread on the ground like a carpet. This sudden turn of events caused everyone present to be shocked. Outside the door, a slender young girl stopped and entered. Behind the young girl were two handsome men. Seeing that this young lady was the one who kicked open the door, Chin Fugue was stunned. He didn't seem to have invited her, right? How dare she kick open the door of his house? Who are you and what are you doing here? Do you know where this is? How dare you be so arrogant? Chin Fugue stood out and shouted at Yun Jian. Get someone to chase her away. Chin Yaching was wearing a gorgeous princess gown. She was ugly, so no matter how she dressed up, it would be futile. The moment Chin Yaching finished speaking, the people around them who were lying through their teeth gradually stopped talking. It's fine if you don't know me. It's enough that you know Chin Sini. Yun Jian followed up right after Chin Yaching finished speaking. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and continued sneering. Because I'll send you to hell on her behalf. After listening to his daughter and Yun Jian's conversation, Chin Fugue knew very well that Yun Jian must have come because of Chin Sini's incident in the morning. Chin Fugue did not care about what happened in the morning because even if Chin Sini was dead, it was just a nameless nobody who could be dealt with money. But now that Chin Sini's friends and family had come to his house, it was a threat to his and his daughter's safety. Therefore, Chin Fugue's expression darkened immediately. Bodyguards. Where are the bodyguards? Get this lunatic out of here. Chin Fugue immediately took out a walkie-talkie and said a few words into it. After he finished speaking, more than 10 bodyguards rushed in from the main door. They were all burly and strong, all of them extraordinary. You want to fight with me? Do you think you're worthy? Yun Jian curled her lips coldly. After she finished speaking, she flipped her hand and an exquisite butterfly knife appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Knife. She actually carries a knife with her. The moment they saw Yun Jian unsheath the knife, everyone present exclaimed in shock and immediately found a secluded corner to hide. Everyone present was a powerless tycoon. However, just as everyone was stunned, Chin Fuhao swallowed a mouthful of saliva. More than 10 bodyguards surrounded Yun Jian. One of the bodyguards suddenly looked at Yun Jian and shouted in front of everyone. He was so scared that he retreated to a corner and did not dare to fight with Yun Jian. At this moment, Chin Fugue recalled what Yun Jian had called herself. The chairman of New Cruise? Falcon Hall's boss Rakshasa? Could it be that she really? Chin Fuhao gulped hard. If Yun Jian was really the owner of New Cruise and Falcon Hall, it would not be good to have another enemy even though it would not cause him to go bankrupt. Moreover, he had heard that New Cruise's chairman and Falcon Hall's Rakshasa were both young women. Therefore, Chin Fugue wanted to make peace with Yun Jian. He spoke to Yun Jian. Your friend isn't dead, right? How about this, let's both take a step back. How much does your friend want? I'll write her a check. Is that okay? Chin Fugue was not sure of Yun Jian's identity, so he had already taken a step back when he spoke to Yun Jian. He had to take a step back because of Yun Jian's shocking power. Chin Fugue was known for being unreasonable. His willingness to take a step back was already unbelievable to the crowd. Just as Chin Fugue spoke, however, Yun Jian's cold voice rang again. She spoke without backing down. She did not back down and said, "We don't need money." At this point she paused. Then what do you need? Chin Fugue's expression darkened. I want her dead. As soon as the words were spoken, Yun Jian moved at a speed that was invisible to the naked eye. She went around Chin Fugue and appeared before Chin Yaching in a flash, kicking her to the ground. Chapter 1690. Yun Jian did not hold back when she stabbed Chin Yaching's abdomen, crushing her organs on the spot. Chin Sini had almost died. Why did she say that? The surgery was very dangerous because it involved the brain. Moreover, she did not take over immediately. In the end, it was Yun Jian who saved her by force. For that, she even used the spiritual energy of Yulong mainland. If she used the spiritual energy of Yulong mainland on Earth, her cultivation base would not improve for 100 years. Her physique was different from other cultivators. Others could not improve their cultivation base for 100 years, but if she used her spiritual energy on Earth, there would be no improvement for 10 years. To save Chin Sini, to be the first friend she met in Longmen City, Yun Jian was willing to not develop her spiritual energy for 10 years. There was a limit to a person's patience. Some things could be forgiven but others must pay a painful price. Even if Chin Sini did not die, her brain had been ruptured and she could no longer run or do any strenuous exercise in the future. The aftereffects would last forever. After knowing that Chin Sini might die, Chin Yaching dressed herself up prettily and attended the party as if nothing had happened. Yunjian was indeed different from her past life after her rebirth. It did not mean that she would tolerate everything. Qin Yaqing must die today. Ah, ah. After the knife stabbed into Qin Yaqing's abdomen, Qin Yaqing cried out in pain. Yunjian narrowed her eyes. After she stabbed the butterfly knife into Qin Yaqing's abdomen, she moved the knife from her abdomen to her heart, sending Qin Yaqing to hell by disembowelment. Blood gushed out like a hot spring and dyed the floor of Qin Fugue's living room red. Qin Yaqing died on the spot. Qing. You killed Qing. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you. Qin Fugue only recovered from his shock after a long while. His pupils constricted and he broke down completely the moment he saw Qin Yaqing's death. Go to hell. I want you to pay with your life. I want you to pay with your life. Qin Fugue had completely broken down. He flew towards Yunjian, roaring as he rushed towards Yunjian. Color drained from everyone's faces from Yunjian's behavior. She actually killed Qin Yaqing. How dare you? You actually... Before Qin Fugue could reach Yunjian, Yunjian kicked Qin Fugue away. She followed closely behind and kicked Qin Fugue in the stomach. Why wouldn't I dare? Not only you but everyone here today will be destroyed because of you. At this moment Yunjian's gaze was terrifyingly cold. Even Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen were a little shocked. The moment Qin Fugue was kicked to the ground by Yunjian, he was so scared that he couldn't stop trembling. The moment Yunjian killed Qin Yaqing, the people around them screamed and ran for the door. Chapter 1691. That one sentence had decided everyone's fate. They could only blame themselves for befriending Qin Fugue. For a moment, the sounds of slaughter were heard. Standing among the corpses, Yunjian's expression was calm, making it impossible to tell if she was happy or sad. Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen felt like they were looking at the god of slaughter. Yunjian, who stood among the corpses and pools of blood, was a perfect match for the scene. It was as if she was meant to live in such an environment. At that moment, Yunjian felt like she had returned to her past life, the world where blood was spilled. It was an era filled with bloodshed. The next day, something major happened in Longmen City. The richest millionaire in the southern region was having a party, but unfortunately, a fire broke out. The doors were shut tight and everyone was burned to death by the raging fire. There were no exceptions to the disaster. Many of the millionaires who were invited to the party died on the spot as well. When the fire was discovered and extinguished, everyone was burned to death. Some were not even left with their bones. When the news was released, not only Longmen City but the entire Zhe province and even the entire country Z was shocked. It sounded like a massacre, but there was no evidence at the scene. In the end, the police concluded that it was an accident and closed the case without further investigation. Chen Sini was unconscious for 3 days. When she woke up, she could not move her head as it was supported by a skeleton. Bang! It was excruciating pain. Chen Sini was in agony the entire night after she woke up. There were a few times when she wanted to commit suicide, but after hearing from Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen that it was Yun Jian who saved her life, she fainted a few times from the pain but managed to hang on. Every time she could not take it anymore, Zhang Xiaofeng would go to Qin Sini and tell her that Qin Yaqing was dead and that God had punished her by making her die. They did not mention a word about what happened that day. And the culprit of this incident, Zhang Qingjun, was paralyzed because he was not sent to the hospital in time. He could only sit in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. Zhang Xiaofeng accompanied Qin Sini day and night. He was afraid that Qin Sini would commit suicide because of the pain, so he often told Qin Sini some interesting things. When Qin Sini was in too much pain to bear, he would let Qin Sini bite his hand. As soon as Yun Jian came out of Qin Sini's ward in the hospital, she heard the shouts from a distance. Doctor, my son can't be paralyzed. He could not spend the rest of his life in a wheelchair. Please think of something. As long as we can save him, we can spend as much money as you want. Chapter 1692. The Hand of Death? She is the hand of death in your medical field? Are you kidding me? When the doctor pointed at Yun Jian and told Zhang Qingjuan's mother what he said just now, the parents were dumbfounded. Both of them turned to look at Yun Jian in disbelief and exclaimed in shock. Especially Zhang Qingjuan's mother, Mrs. Wen. Her son had always been her pride. She had a son, so she had a special status in her husband's family. The most important thing was that her son was not only handsome, but also the most handsome boy in the school. He really got his strong genes. Mrs. Wen had always been proud of that. But she never thought that her son would be stabbed by a crazy woman in the school. His legs were paralyzed and he could no longer walk. Mrs. Wen always thought that the girls in the school were not good enough for her son. In fact, Mrs. Wen didn't know the reason why Zhang Qingjun had an accident. She put all the blame on Yun Jian. So when Mrs. Wen just knew that the person who hurt her son was Yun Jian, she rushed up to vent her anger without saying anything. But Mrs. Wen never thought that the girl who hurt her son was the top doctor in the medical field, the hand of death, who could even save a patient who had been declared dead. The girl who caused his son to become like this was actually the only person in the world who could save his son. The enemy became the person who needed to be flattered. Mrs. Wen was stunned. She never thought that things would turn out like this. Zhang Qingjun, who was sitting in the wheelchair, was also completely stunned. Headmaster Shi of No. 1 Middle School was also petrified. As a doctor, I also have the professional ethics of a doctor. I never joke about this kind of thing. At that time, the heart and brain of the patient in Ward 506 had stopped working in the emergency room. Originally he was completely dead. But as soon as she took action, the person strangely came back to life. I've seen it with my own eyes. Other than the hand of death, in our medical field, no one else can do it. The doctor was very unhappy after hearing Mrs. Wen's words. In addition, he wanted to show off in front of Yun Jian, so he said to Mrs. Wen in a very impatient tone. Since the doctor dared to say so, how could it be fake? No matter how much they didn't believe it, they had no choice but to believe it. You really are the hand of death. It's impressive that you're so capable at such a young age, but don't blame me for not reminding you. You've provoked someone you shouldn't have. Zhang Qingjuan's father was much calmer than Yun Jian. At this moment, Zhang Qingjuan's father, Zhang Di, was looking at Yun Jian with a serious expression. After that, Zhang Di's expression calmed down a little. He stared at Yun Jian and directly stated his purpose. My son is sitting in a wheelchair because of you. As long as you find a way to cure him, I won't pursue your responsibility. Chapter 1693. Yun Jian's words were cold, making Zhang Di and the other two feel as if they were in a world of ice and snow, frozen by thick ice. Zhang Qingjun, Zhang Di, and Mrs. Wen all shivered unconsciously. When they carefully recalled what Yun Jian said just now, Zhang Qingjuan's eyes widened abruptly as his pupils constricted. Glaring at Yun Jian, he nearly shouted with his mouth agape. In the end, afraid of Yun Jian, he lowered his voice and said fearfully, "There was a fire in Qin Yaqing's house and all the guests, including the host, died in the fire. Was it you? Could it be that you did it?" But Zhang Qingjun didn't dare to shout out the last sentence. It was because he saw Yun Jian's right hand poking out of her pants pocket. Between the fingers of her right hand was a butterfly knife that had yet to be unsheathed. The gleam of the butterfly knife flashed briefly. Seeing this, Zhang Qingjun swallowed a mouthful of saliva. The fire in the villa on Jiefeng Road shocked the whole Zhe province and even the whole Z country. Qin Fugui was the richest man in the southern region and had a certain influence in the whole Z country. That fire took the lives of Qin Fugui's family without warning, including all the rich people who went to Qin Fugui's house to attend the party. It was sudden, but now that Yun Jian had mentioned it, she was shocked. In addition, Qin Yaqing was the culprit who almost killed Qin Sini. On the day of the fire, Yun Jian went to school to find him. Putting the two together, Yun Jian, Zhang Qingjun, who suddenly realized this, looked at Yun Jian in horror. Qin Fugui was the richest man in the southern region. Yun Jian was too scary. She could even kill the richest man in the southern region without leaving a trace. Just what kind of power was behind her? Zhang Qingjuan's eyes widened in horror. Mrs. Wen and Zhang Di immediately felt that something was wrong. Mrs. Wen and Zhang Di didn't know how their son Zhang Qingjun provoked Yun Jian, but they were not stupid. Naturally, they understood the meaning of Yun Jian's words. Moreover, Zhang Qingjun was only halfway through his sentence. The richest man in the southern region, Qin Fugui's family, was quietly exterminated. Was this done by Yun Jian? Zhang Di and Mrs. Wen's faces darkened at the same time. Who was Qin Fugui? Even on the international stage, Qin Fugui was still a big shot. Although Zhang Di's family background was illustrious, compared to Qin Fugui's family background, it was not even worth a blade of grass. Yun Jian could annihilate Qin Fugui's family without a sound. How could the Zhang clan afford to offend him? At this moment, Zhang Di and Madame Wen couldn't help but tremble in their hearts. How did their family's Jun provoke such a terrifying woman? No, it was a girl. She wasn't even human. Even if the girl named Qin Sini accidentally pushed her down the stairs, her head hit the ground and she died. She didn't need to silence Qin Yaqing's family. But she really killed Qin Yaqing's family. He had really managed to wipe out an entire sect without a sound. Jun, we don't want to treat you anymore. Mom will take care of you forever. Mom will protect you. Let's go. Let's go. Mrs. Wen's face turned green with fear. How could she dare to stay here? If she stayed any longer she would lose her life. Mrs. Wen hurried over to push Zhang Qingjuan's wheelchair. She reached out and pulled her husband Zhang Di's clothes. They hurried out of the hospital gate. Before they walked out of the hospital gate, they heard a sharp female voice behind them. The three of them were scared and their faces changed again. Did I say you could go? As soon as she finished speaking, Yun Jian had already flashed to the three of them. What do you want? Mrs. Wen's face was pale with fear. She stuttered and asked Yun Jian. Qin Jinchuan stood at the door so that Qin Sini, who was in the ward, would not hear him. He suppressed his voice and said painfully, was there really no way to deal with Zhang Qingjun, the culprit? Just as Qin Jinchuan and his friends were standing there and the atmosphere was at its lowest point, suddenly a person was thrown in through the door. Everyone took a closer look. Wasn't this person Zhang Qingjun? Outside the door, Yun Jian threw Zhang Qingjun into the room and walked over. She stepped on Zhang Qingjuan's back in front of everyone and knocked Zhang Qingjuan's head hard in the direction of Qin Sini's bed. Then Yun Jian turned around and shouted at the door, you two get in here and kowtow together. After that, Zhang Di and his wife, Mrs. Wen, who were still discussing how difficult it was to deal with, ran into the room trembling. They obediently knelt down in the direction of Qin Sini's bed. Chapter 1695. Everyone who saw this scene was petrified. Principal Shi, who was with Zhang Di and Mrs. Wen just now, sneaked away. Yun Jian didn't bother to care about him. After Principal Shi slipped away, Yun Jian directly pulled Zhang Qingjun and the other two into the ward. At this moment, seeing Zhang Qingjun, Zhang Di and Mrs. Wen obediently listening to Yun Jian, they all knelt down and kowtowed to Qin Sini. Whether it was Qin Sini's father, Qin Jinchuan, or Qin Sini's mother, He Xia, who was sobbing secretly at the side, blaming her daughter for what she had gone through. In the end, the culprit was still at large. Everyone, including Qin Sini's relatives who came to visit her in the hospital, saw this scene and couldn't help but be shocked. Of course, everyone present recognized Zhang Di. They had also seen Zhang Qingjuan's photo, especially Qin Jinchuan. His daughter had suffered so much. If he didn't even know what the person who hurt his daughter looked like, how could he be a father? Therefore, the moment he saw Zhang Qingjun, Zhang Di, and Mrs. Wen being driven into the room by Yun Jian and kneeling down to apologize, Qin Jinchuan and his relatives and friends were all dumbfounded. Jinchuan, this is? The middle-aged man who had just said that Zhang Qingjuan's father was a big shot and difficult to deal with, saw this scene and came back to his senses after a long time. He had asked someone to ask whether Zhang Qingjuan's case could be solved. However, the news he got was that Zhang Qingjuan's father, Zhang Di, was very powerful. This was not easy to deal with. This also meant that even if Qin Sini couldn't be cured and died, it would be good for Qin Yaqing and Zhang Qingjun. Qin Jinchuan was not strong enough to deal with them at all. To be honest, if he was not strong enough and his family members were killed by others, nothing would happen to them at all. His family members died in vain. That was why the middle-aged man was so surprised. Who on earth was Yun Jian? How could she make Zhang Di and Zhang Qingjun, who even he and Qin Jinchuan couldn't handle, obediently kowtow and apologize to Chen Sini? How capable was this little girl? How could she make such a big shot like Zhang Di and his son take the initiative to apologize to Chen Sini? Naturally, Qin Jinchuan didn't know the reason. He stared blankly at the scene in front of him. It wasn't hard to guess that Yun Jian must be capable. That was why Zhang Di and Zhang Qingjun came to apologize. However, before anyone could react, Yun Jian brought Zhang Di and Zhang Qingjun here to kowtow and apologize to Chen Sini. On the other side, Yun Jian stomped on Zhang Di's head, slamming it to the ground. Is that all you've got? I want you to kowtow and apologize, not wipe the floor and apologize. Yun Jian's chilling words rang in everyone's ears, eliciting a wave of fear in them. The fact that Zhang Di came to apologize to Chen Sini was shocking enough. It was something that no one had expected. But this little girl? She dared to step on Zhang Di's head and ask him to apologize to Chen Sini.
Yes.
I'm sorry, it's my son's fault. It's all my son Zhang Qingjuan's fault. I apologize to you here. I apologize to you. We won't dare to do it again. Zhang Di was afraid of Yun Jian. With Yun Jian stepping on his head, he kowtowed and apologized to Chen Sini. In the end, his forehead was almost bleeding. Yun Jian stepped on Zhang Di's head. Seeing that Zhang Qingjun didn't kowtow hard enough, she stepped on Zhang Qingjuan's head again. Only the sound of kowtowing could be heard. That sound alone was enough to make people's hair stand on end, not to mention those who experienced it themselves. It was only when the trio's heads were bleeding from the kowtowing that Yun Jian released her foot and took a step back. Everyone saw a handsome man coming in from outside the gate. The handsome man stood there, hugged Yun Jian's waist from behind, and whispered softly in her ear that everyone present could hear. Chapter 1696. Yun Jian's heart calmed down when she sensed the familiar aura. It's them. Yun Jian's back was pressed against Si Yi's chest. Her beautiful and slender fingers pointed at the three men kneeling in front of Chen Sini. Perhaps because Si Yi was here, her tense heart gradually relaxed. She even spoke in a coquettish tone. Of course, Si Yi was the only one who thought so. Yun Jian was already used to Si Yi coming to find her at any time. She leaned against Si Yi's sturdy chest and looked at the three men. If the people standing around hadn't seen Yun Jian's cruel methods against the three men, they would probably have thought that Yun Jian was the one being bullied. However, Yun Jian would only show this kind of attitude in front of Si Yi. Si Yi wrapped his arms around Yun Jian's slender waist. He felt Yun Jian's soft body and couldn't help but lean in close to Yun Jian's ear. He didn't hold back in front of everyone. Then I'll kill them, okay? Si Yi put his lips next to Yun Jian's ear as if he was coaxing a child. His sharp eyes sized up the three men. This handsome man who angered both men and gods actually kept saying the word, kill. It was as if to him, killing someone was as simple as eating a mouthful of rice. At this moment, not only did the three men kneeling on the ground kowtow even harder, they cried out, "Don't kill me, I'll kowtow, I'll kowtow." Even Chen Sini's relatives were so frightened that their faces changed. From the moment Si Yi appeared, he gave everyone the feeling that, as long as Yun Jian was happy, even if she asked him to pluck the stars from the sky, he wouldn't complain at all. It was unbelievably indulgent. Every word he uttered was unimaginably indulgent. There was actually a man who pampered his woman so much in this world.
Jian, thank you.
If it weren't for you, I'd be in hell now. You've been running around a lot for me these few days. Get rid of them. I don't want to see these scum and trash of society anymore. Chen Sini spoke all of a sudden at this moment. Chen Sini couldn't move her head, so her voice came from the bed. Chen Sini was very touched, but she also felt a little guilty. Yun Jian had saved her life, and now Yun Jian had to run around to avenge her. That was why he told Zhang Qingjun and the others to scram so that he would not have to trouble Jian Jian. I'm so lucky to have a friend like you. If anything happens to you in the future, even if you want me to go to hell, I'll go for you. Chen Sini muttered a few words in her heart. There was no need to talk about repaying favors all the time. Those who truly repaid favors usually did so when they no longer needed you. Get lost. Yun Jian kicked Zhang Qingjun, who was closest to her, when she heard what Chen Sini said. This kick caused Zhang Qingjun and the other two to quickly get up from the ground. Zhang Qingjun was pulled back into the wheelchair, and the three of them ran away as fast as they could without looking back. It was true that Ce wanted to kill Zhang Qingjun and the other two men, but he did not want to let go of Yunjian's tender body after a while. Could he be blamed? His Xiao Jin's charm was too great. He had to get her in bed sooner or later. Caress her soft body, hold her and make a baby. Ce's hand was placed on Yunjian's stomach without a trace. He pressed his lips together and thought wickedly. This place would bear his child sooner or later. Chapter 1697. Yunjian did not know that Ce, who was hugging her, had her hand on her tummy and was still thinking about such naughty things. She left with Ce after exchanging a few words with Chen Sini. Chen Sini still needed to rest. When she left, Yunjian bumped into Zhang Xiaofeng outside the People's Hospital. Master, you're here to see Sini? Why are you leaving so soon? Zhang Xiaofeng asked Yunjian as he carried Chen Sini's favorite peach that he had just bought from a faraway place. Will be leaving first. We still have to pick up my younger siblings from school, Yunjian replied with a nod at Zhang Xiaofeng with pursed lips. Yunjian had to pick up Xiao Yunju, Duanli and Duanya from elementary school because Qin Yiru was working overtime today. Yunjian did not go to the military academy because Chen Sini had taken leave for the past 2 days. She stayed at home to help Qin Yiru fetch Xiao Yunju and the other two from school. Yunjian did not go to school these 2 days because Chen Sini was not in a good condition initially. If she went to school, Chen Sini's condition would worsen and she would be done for. Therefore Yunjian stayed in Longmen City instead of going to school. She could rush here immediately if there were any changes in Chen Sini's condition. Since Qin Yiru was working overtime today and Ce was back, Yunjian and Ce went to the elementary school to pick up Xiao Yunju and the other two from school. Xiao Yunju's school did not allow parents to enter as they were afraid that criminals would raid the school. There were only children in the school. It would be bad if something happened to them. Therefore, parents were standing at the school gate to pick up their children. They were surrounded by parents. Yunjian and Ce attracted a lot of attention because of their outstanding looks. Yunjian was not short. She was already 1.65 meters tall. Ce's height of 1.85 meters was impressive. The two of them stood out in the crowd. However, what was even more eye-catching was that Ce was holding Yunjian's small hand with one hand, while his other hand was lazily stuffed into his trouser pocket. His handsome face coupled with his figure was enough to make young girls and even middle-aged women scream. It was simply too conspicuous. Xiao Yunju and the other two ran out of the school and threw themselves in front of Yunjian and Ce. Ce held Xiao Yunju's hand while Yunjian held Duanli and Duanya's hands. The 5 of them left the crowd like a family. Ce and Yunjian could still hear the murmurs of the crowd. Look, don't tell me those 3 children belong to that couple? Are you serious? That couple looks very young to me. That guy is so handsome. Some people just look so young. They might even be in their 20s or 30s. I think that girl is also very pretty. Walking together with that guy, they are really a match made in heaven. And look, they were holding the 3 children's hands as if they were their own. I'm about to be brainwashed by this scene. The group of female parents who were standing at the same spot were discussing fervently. However, they did not know that their words were all heard by Yunjian and Ce. Yunjian blushed while Ce's handsome lips curved upwards. He enjoyed this feeling very much. Sister, brother Ce, when can you give birth to a little Ce for me to play with? Mama Qin said that babies need a year to be born. Can I see little Ce on this day next year? Xiao Yunju shook Ce's large hand twice before looking at Yunjian and Ce with anticipation. Hearing Xiao Yunju's sudden question, Yunjian blushed but she did not say anything. You'll see, Ce said with a charming grin with a smirk where no one was looking. Xiao Yunju would see his and Xiao Jian's child sooner or later. It would not be a little Ce but a bunch of little Ce's. Chapter 1698. As soon as they reached home, it started raining outside and the wind started blowing. The rain started drizzling but it soon turned into a downpour and the weather changed. At this moment Yunjian and Ce brought Xiao Yunju, Duanling Tian and Duanling Tian into the house. As soon as they entered, Xiao Yunju, Duanli and Duanya ran to turn on the TV to watch the popular cartoon Doraemon. If Qin Yiru was at home, she would have asked the 3 of them to finish their homework before playing. However, Xiao Yunju, Duanli, and Duanya took advantage of the fact that their mother was not at home to watch the cartoon on TV. From time to time they would laugh out loud at the characters in the cartoon. When Yunjian saw that Xiao Yunju, Duanling Tian and Duanling Tian were having so much fun, her red lips curled into a beautiful smile. She instructed Ce to look after Xiao Yunju and Duanling Tian before returning to her room. Ziyi was very obedient and did not follow her. He sat beside the sofa where Xiao Yunzhu, Duanling Tian, and Duanling Tian were sitting. He placed his bony hands behind his head and closed his eyes lazily. His handsome face was so perfect that if there were anyone present, they would be amazed that such a handsome man existed in this world. Yunjian went back to her room to take a shower and change into a clean set of clothes. She went downstairs in less than 10 minutes. She even answered a call on the way. When she saw that Xiao Yunzhu, Duanling Tian, and Duanling Tian were still obediently watching the cartoon, Yunjian nodded to Ce. My mom just called me and asked me to bring her an umbrella. It's raining so heavily and she forgot to bring an umbrella. You stay at home and look after Xiao Zhu and Duanling Tian. Don't let them run around. To Ce, these words sounded like the instructions of a wife to her husband. His handsome lips curved as he silently agreed. Then Yunjian walked to the front door, took 2 umbrellas from the umbrella rack and walked out. Xiao Yunzhu and the other 2 naturally needed someone to accompany them at home. Yunjian didn't want Ce to go with her. He asked him to stay at home and watch over Xiao Yunzhu and the other 2. The wind and rain outside were even heavier. The rain was like basins of water pouring down from the sky. If there were pedestrians strolling on the streets, even if they had umbrellas, they would definitely be drenched. In this kind of weather, traffic police usually wouldn't stand on the road. Therefore, Yunjian drove her newly repaired LaFerrari supercar to the flower shop to pick up Qin Yiru from work. Yunjian's LaFerrari supercar was sent back to Ferrari's headquarters for repair after it was wrecked the last time. Yunjian stepped on the gas pedal amidst the heavy rain and howling wind. The car moved forward slowly, followed by a loud roar around them. Along with the fiery red supercar, it disappeared into the air. In the flower shop, the employees in the shop had already gotten off work. However, many of the employees who didn't bring umbrellas were standing at the front door, waiting for their relatives and friends to pick them up. The employees in the shop had changed. Many of Qin Yiru's employees had left. Most of the employees in the shop were middle-aged women who were around the same age as Qin Yiru. After all, they had a child mentality. At this moment, Qin Yiru was standing at the front door. A middle-aged woman asked Qin Yiru confidently, "Qin Yiru, does anyone send you? My daughter is coming to pick me up." Qin Yiru smiled at the middle-aged woman. This middle-aged woman was called Hu Yan. She was usually a very proud person. She was the most proud of her son. Now that she was talking to Qin Yiru, she couldn't help but show off that her son could afford a car. "Is that so? Your daughter is sending you an umbrella? That's quite tiring. My son drove a Volkswagen. I told him not to come, but he still insisted on coming to pick me up. He's filial. I'm so lucky." Qin Yiru was not surprised that her daughter could drive, because Yunjian had to learn everything under Gu Junjian. Driving was very important during missions. Sometimes it could even save one's life. "I don't think so, my daughter." Qin Yiru was more easygoing, so she had just spoken when she was interrupted. She heard the sound of a horn. Honk honk honk. A black Volkswagen stopped next to the flower shop. A man got out of the Volkswagen with an umbrella and walked quickly to Hu Yan. "Mom, I'm here to pick you up from work." Seeing the man's Volkswagen, the other employees in the flower shop couldn't help but exclaim, "A Volkswagen? How much money must he have to pay to afford it? If you don't have at least 100,000 yuan at home, you won't dare to buy a car. Wow, he's really rich." Hearing the discussions around her, Hu Yan's heart almost flew to the sky. She pretended to be calm and said to Qin Yiru, "Qin Yiru, don't be so polite. Later, let your daughter who came with an umbrella take my car back." Who knew that just as she finished speaking, a fiery red supercar in the distance sped over like lightning. It drifted and suddenly stopped. "Whose car is this? Hey, I think this car is not cheap. I've never seen such a beautiful car." The people around her immediately exclaimed. Hu Yan also straightened her eyes and was slightly envious. However, just as Hu Yan was envious, she saw the girl sitting in the car open the door and get out with an umbrella. Then she walked straight to Qin Yiru and stood in front of Qin Yiru. "Mom, let's go home." Hearing this, Hu Yan's eyes suddenly widened. Qin Yiru's family has a car? Moreover, it's a car with only 2 seats and an unknown brand? Just as she thought of this, everyone present heard Hu Yan's son suddenly change his expression. He pointed at Yunjian's car with a trembling hand and exclaimed, Isn't that the limited edition Ferrari LaFerrari which is only sold in the world? There are only 3 of these cars in the world, and each of them is sold at a sky-high price. It's already out of production. If you want to buy such a supercar, and a limited edition one at that, You can't even talk about it without 10 million yuan? Chapter 1700. 10 million. This car needs 10 million to buy? Everyone present only heard the number in his words, and immediately, everyone's faces changed greatly from fright. Hu Yan in particular, who had been particularly smug in front of Qin Yiru just now, had her mouth agape and exclaimed after her son spoke. Mom, 10 million is not enough to buy this car. I mean, if you don't have 10 million, don't even think about talking about this car. This is the world's flagship, limited edition supercar. A supercar that even rich people can't buy. The people who can buy it must be someone who has a lot of influence in the world. That's why I'm shocked that such a supercar would appear here. Hu Yan's son interrupted Hu Yan after she finished speaking. It was obvious that Hu Yan's son had done some research on limited edition supercars. Hu Yan was originally showing off in front of Qin Yiru, but she never expected that the person who broke her bragging rights was her son. At that moment, Hu Yan's face was extremely dark. What she said to Qin Yiru just now was a joke. I wanted to tell you that my daughter should be driving here to pick me up. Qin Yiru looked at Hu Yan and smiled awkwardly. She didn't mean to embarrass Hu Yan, but Hu Yan didn't give her a chance to explain. After Hu Yan heard Qin Yiru's words, her face became even darker. This car is so beautiful. It cost more than 10 million, how can it not be beautiful? This car belongs to Qin Yiru's daughter, right? My God, her daughter is so young, but she can afford such an expensive car. It's a blessing to have a daughter. Sons nowadays aren't of much use after giving birth to them. Daughters are better. A series of conversations came from the surroundings. Hu Yan's face became even darker when she heard the voices of the flower shop employees who were waiting for their relatives and friends to pick them up. Hu Yan had always been proud that she had a son. Moreover, Hu Yan's son was so promising that he even brought her out of the countryside to live in the big city. The few neighbors in the countryside were envious. At that time, Hu Yan thought that her son was the most capable person in the world. However, at this moment, she felt that what she said in front of Qin Yiru just now was enough to embarrass her for the rest of her life. The Volkswagen that his son had bought had only cost about 50 to 60,000 yuan. However, Qin Yiru's daughter's car. Thinking of this, Hu Yan felt that something was wrong. Qin Yiru's daughter was so young, how could she afford such an expensive sports car? Looking at Yun Jian's appearance, she was so beautiful that people couldn't take their eyes off her. She suddenly had a feeling of realization. Hu Yan then looked up at Qin Yiru and spoke bluntly in front of the crowd. You're right. Qin Yiru, how much did your daughter spend on this car? She bought such an expensive car. Why are you still working at our flower shop? Don't tell me that this car was given to her by her man? On the surface, Hu Yan was saying that Yun Jian's car was given to her by her man. However, as long as one was not stupid, they could tell that she was lying. Did Yun Jian become someone's mistress or mistress? Did she get this car by being a mistress? After hearing Hu Yan's words, Qin Yiru naturally couldn't hold back her anger. She could tolerate it if others talked bad about her, but she couldn't tolerate it if they talked bad about her daughter, Yun Jian. There was no reason. This was probably the so-called motherly love. Qin Yiru was about to retort, but Yun Jian pulled Qin Yiru's sleeve and stopped Qin Yiru from speaking. When others saw Yun Jian pulling Qin Yiru, they really thought that Yun Jian got the car by being a mistress and that her man gave it to her. Hu Yan looked at Yun Jian with contempt again. However, just when everyone was looking down on Yun Jian's voice rang out. Her voice reached everyone's ears. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.